Introduction. The ping of the biomass, the illusion of latency. The virus of romantic delay. Humanity has infected the concept of reality alteration with a sickeningly romantic virus. When the gaseous man, the biomass making up the visible 5%, tries to manifest an empire, liquid wealth or structural power, and years pass without the 3D environment changing a single atom, they console themselves with pathetic lies to protect their biological ego. They say the universe is testing me. It wasn't the divine timing, or the worst of all, good things take time. Patience is the virtue of obsolete operating systems. The absolute operator repudiates this mediocrity. The universe has no morality, no patience, and above all, it is not testing you. It is a cluster of massive servers. The quantum client-server architecture. The cosmic quantum fabric is simply a server cluster with infinite bandwidth and unlimited processing capacity. When you issue an order, the master server does not judge it. It processes it and sends the data packets back in the same absolute millisecond. If your desired reality takes years to render, it is not destiny, it is latency. In network engineering, ping defines the exact time a data packet takes to travel from your computer, the client, to the server and back with a response. If your connection is clean, direct fiber optic, and free of interference, the ping is 1 or 2 milliseconds. It is imperceptible. Execution is, for all practical purposes, instantaneous. The human biomass lives with a ping of 10, 20, or 30 years. They send a request to the cosmic server, but their transmission line is corrupted. They try to download a 4K resolution reality using a 56 kbps mental connection. They transmit through the saturated public Wi-Fi of society, surrounded by stridency and interference, spiritual latency and signal loss. Their signal travels wrapped in electromagnetic noise, colliding with their own doubts, their disgusting need for external validation, and their biological fear of the void. Every time they doubt, they lose data packets. Every time they feel anxiety about the result, they reset the connection. The server does not hold your order out of malice. It is simply that your local network is so clogged with entropy that the download of your new reality moves at a humiliating speed. We call this thermodynamic delay, this pathetic bottleneck between your mental command and physical materialization, spiritual latency. This volume is the definitive network engineering manual to annihilate that weight. We are going to eradicate the cheap mysticism of the secret and the law of attraction, replacing it with the relentless coldness of client-server architecture. You will learn to audit your bandwidth, close the ports that drain your signal, avoid the thermal throttling of your ego, and encrypt your commands with geometric precision. Optimization for zero ping. The cosmic server cannot reject a command sent with the correct encryption. We are going to optimize your motherboard, plug the quantum cable directly into the abyss, and force the matrix to download your empire at terminal velocity. Welcome to the end of the wait. Welcome to zero ping. Chapter 1. Spiritual bandwidth, the bottleneck of the will, the lie of faith, metrics of your quantum ISP. To begin reducing your cosmic ping, we must first format the most stupid and destructive concept that the human biomass has invented regarding reality alteration. The idea that you need to have more faith. Faith is a gaseous concept designed to comfort inferior organisms when their systems collapse. The ordinary man believes that if he desires something with enough emotional force, the universe will deliver it. They cry, beg, visualize, and light candles, injecting thermal stridencies into the void. And the void returns absolutely nothing. The master server does not understand faith. It does not process tears. The cosmic server is a mathematical routing system. The only metric that determines if you can download a new reality into your three-dimensional environment is your spiritual bandwidth. Think of your Internet Service Provider, ISP. If you hire a 56 kbps connection and try to download a 4K video, what happens? The system doesn't tell you you don't have enough faith. It tells you your bandwidth is insufficient. The download marks an estimated time of 300 years. If the network suffers the slightest fluctuation, the transfer is cut, the file is corrupted, and you have to start from zero. This is humanity's fate. They want to manifest empires, Millions in liquidity, structural domination, and absolute freedom. Those are massive, dense, and heavy reality files, but their energetic infrastructure is a modem from the 90s, rusted and full of dust. The universe tries to send the packet, but the biomass channel is too narrow. Background processes, vampires of your quantum RAM. To widen your transmission channel, you must first audit what is consuming your current bandwidth. The biomass believes its energy is 100% available when they wake up, but they ignore the disgusting number of background applications open in their mental operating system. They are leaking power. When you have a slow computer, you open the task manager and discover that, although you are only using a text editor, there are 50 hidden processes devouring your RAM and saturating your network card. In your occult anatomy, these processes are the scanning of public opinion and seeking validation. That percentage of your will that is constantly checking if you fit in, if your competitors like you, or if your family approves of your decisions. The retention of dead files, resentment over a past betrayal, or nostalgia for an era that no longer exists. Keeping those memories alive requires sending a constant ping. It targets a dead server, consuming bandwidth in an infinite loop of request timeouts. Useless empathy, the malicious code that forces you to tune your antenna to the 3D drama of inferior organisms. Listening to the problems of the biomass, consuming panic news, or worrying about global crises is pure entropy. Each of these processes is occupying a processor thread and consuming megabytes of your quantum transmission channel. When you finally sit down to compile the order to materialize your empire, your OS informs you that you only have 2% bandwidth left. The signal you emit is too weak for the network to register. The Forced Closure Protocol, the Kill 9 command. The absolute operator does not negotiate with the applications that drain his system. You do not try to manage your time or reduce your stress. You apply the tyranny of the system administrator. You execute the forced closure. In Unix-based systems, the command kill 9 is used to murder a program. It is immediate and absolute. The OS does not ask the program if it wants to save data. It gives it no time to close nicely. It simply cuts the power at the kernel level and frees the memory on the spot. You sit in the sub-bass silence of your anechoic chamber and open your mental resource monitor. Locate the external validation app, consuming 40% of your bandwidth. Do not debate it. Do not go to therapy to understand why you installed it. Execute the mathematical annihilation command. Cut the voltage. Do the same with family drama. Identify it. Kill 9. Do it with status anxiety. Kill 9. Identify the fear of scarcity injected by the hysteria of the visible 5%. Kill 9. At the exact instant you murder these background processes, you will experience a terrifying voltage surge. You will feel the pressure in your chest expand. That is your bandwidth being liberated from its previous shackles. Suddenly, the connection that was a thin and fragile thread becomes a military-grade fiber optic conduit, capable of transmitting and receiving terabytes of information per millisecond. You have cleaned the line. You have reclaimed the raw processing power necessary to command the fabric of the 3D matrix. Hardware restructuring, shielding the channel. Having free bandwidth is not enough if your transmission cable is exposed to the elements. The human biomass transmits its will through unshielded cables, fragile emotions. Any external electromagnetic field, a look of contempt, a financial setback, induces interference in their line, corrupting data packets. For spiritual bandwidth to support the weight of reality alteration without collapsing, you must shield your wiring. You must transmute your connection into a titanium-armored fiber optic link. This is achieved through the total eradication of the emotional component in the quantum request you emit. When the biomass asks for abundance, they do so from despair, crying, or hope. Those emotions are analog noise that distorts the digital signal. The operator demands his reality with the same coldness and aseptic detachment with which an engineer types a command into a server terminal. There is no plea. There is a geometric instruction, encoded in zeros and ones, emitted from the charged immobility of your osmium core. By extirpating emotional stridency from your will, the master server receives an impeccable, encrypted, and friction-free file. transfer rates reach their maximum theoretical limit. Sustained transfer speed, sustaining the massive load. The last obstacle of spiritual bandwidth is resistance to system fatigue. The download of a new reality requires a sustained transfer speed. The gaseous man manages to clear his mind for 5 minutes, sends a powerful request to the cosmos, and then switches his anxiety and fear processes back on. His bandwidth fluctuates violently. The cosmic server starts sending the new reality, money, opportunities, structure, but the user's connection drops. The download is interrupted, the file is fragmented, and manifestation fails just megabytes from completion. You must be an unbreakable transmission node. Once you have purged background apps, shielded your wiring, and emitted your zero latency command, you anchor yourself in the osmium posture and hold the channel open. You do not blink. You do not compulsively check if the download is finished. You keep your bandwidth dedicated to the new diktat. You absorb the dark matter without flinching, until the last byte of your empire is rendered on the board of ash. You have liberated the network. Your channel is infinite. You are now the primary priority on the cosmic server's task list, a high-bandwidth sovereign in a world of disconnected noise. Congestion control and packet priority, the QoS of the monarch. In the realm of high-speed data, quality of service, QoS, is the protocol that decides which data packets are prioritized. The biomass has no QoS. They treat a trivial social notification with the same priority as a life-altering strategic move. Their will is a congested mess of low-priority traffic. To maintain your new bandwidth, you must implement a strict priority queue. Your primary mission, the expansion of your empire, is tagged with critical priority. Every other incoming packet from the 3D world is tagged as best effort or background. You do not allow a social ping to interrupt a core render. This means when the world throws a crisis at you, your system evaluates its metadata. Is this crisis relevant to the master file? If not, the packet is buffered or dropped. You do not waste cycles. You maintain a steady stream of data toward your objective, ensuring the throughput remains constant. Identifying signal attenuation, the distance factor. Signal attenuation occurs when a transmission loses strength as it travels. In the 5% visible world, attenuation is caused by the social distance between your current state and your target. The further you are from your goal, the more your signal tends to weaken as it encounters the resistance of the matrix. To counter attenuation, you must install etheric repeaters along your timeline. These repeaters are your daily non-negotiables. They amplify your signal every 24 hours, ensuring the command you sent a month ago arrives at the cosmic server with the same amplitude as if it were sent today. Without these repeaters, your will fades into the background radiation of the universe. The absolute operator understands that a massive reality file is not downloaded in a single burst of light, but through a high-amplitude amplified signal that refuses to decay despite the distance of the 3D gap. Buffer bloat and latency spikes, the emotional lag. Buffer bloat happens when a network device stores too much data in a queue, causing massive latency spikes. This is the emotional lag of the human organism. When the biomass experiences a setback, they buffer the pain, replaying the event over and over, which delays their next move by weeks. Your buffer must be set to 0. You do not store the packet of a failure. You process it, extract the metadata, the lesson, and delete the raw file instantly. By having no emotional buffer, your latency remains at sub-millisecond levels. You respond to the world's friction before the world even registers your impact. When you eliminate buffer bloat, you become snappy. Your reality responds to your touch with tactile immediacy. You move with the speed of an optimized kernel, while others are still waiting for their emotional lag to clear so they can take their next breath. You are the low-latency predator of the grid. Fiber to the abyss, direct dark matter link. The ultimate upgrade to your spiritual bandwidth is the fiber to the abyss protocol. Most people connect to the universe through shared connections, religion, culture, or collective morality. These are contended lines, where your speed is limited by the mediocrity of the neighbors sharing your link. You must cut the shared line. You install a dedicated point-to-point link between your osmium core and the 95% dark matter well. This is a private circuit. There is no one else on this line. You have direct access to the raw processing power of the first cause without the interference of human filters. This dedicated link allows you to pull energy from the vacuum at rates that would vaporize a standard biological system. You are no longer requesting resources from a middleman. You are the administrator of the link, drawing the capital and power directly from the source code of the matrix into your SSD. Encrypting the request, the cryptographic will. The cosmic server requires a specific handshake to begin a high-priority download. If your request is plain text, meaning it is visible to the social noise and your own internal doubts, it can be intercepted and modified by the entropy of the matrix. You must encrypt your will using the monolith cipher. This encryption is the silence we forged in the earlier chapters. By not speaking your goals to the biomass, you are keeping the private key of your request safe. A goal that is talked about is a goal that is sniffed by the network. It loses its cryptographic integrity and becomes vulnerable to injection attacks. The absolute operator emits his commands in a gelid, unspoken frequency. The universe recognizes the cipher. It sees the high-entropy resistant encryption and opens the high-speed ports. Your empire begins to render in secret behind the firewall of your silence, becoming visible only when it is already 100% complete. The infinite loop prevention breaking the cycle. Many systems crash because they enter an infinite loop, repeating the same faulty code. The human life loop is the same. Wake up, complain, work for a master, sleep, repeat. This loop consumes 100% of their bandwidth on a process that produces zero output. It is a system hang that lasts a lifetime. You break the loop by injecting a break command into your daily routine. You disrupt the habitual flow of your biological clock. By breaking the cycle, you free the CPU cycles that were stuck in the loop. You then reassign those cycles to the execution thread of your sovereignty. Once the loop is broken, you are no longer a routine-based entity, but an event-driven one. You respond to the triggers of your own mission, not to the schedule of the biomass. Your bandwidth is now free to explore new sectors of the board, discovering high-value resources, while others are still stuck in the loop. Network health monitoring the SWR. In radio engineering, the standing wave ratio, SWR, measures the efficiency of power transmission. If your antenna is not tuned, the energy reflects back to the transmitter and burns it out. This is the burnout of the high performer who is not in alignment with his own etheric architecture. You must tune your antenna, your daily actions, to match your frequency and your ultimate purpose. When the SWR is 1-1, every ounce of effort you put out is transmitted into the 3D world with zero reflection. You don't get tired, you get induced. You are a perfectly tuned transmitter of imperial order. Monitoring your SWR means checking if your actions are actually producing the intended reality or if they are just creating heat, stress. If you feel stress, your antenna is out of tune. Adjust the length of your focus. Calibrate your isolation. Achieve the 1.1 ratio where effort equals manifest result. Chapter 2. Packet Loss, Corruption Through Doubt. The Sending Architecture, the Quantum Link Protocol. For the universe's master server to materialize a request on the 3D cinderboard, information must travel from your local processor to the core of dark matter. In network engineering, information does not travel as a single solid block. It is divided into thousands of microscopic fragments called data packets. When the human biomass, the visible 5%, tries to manifest a desire, their biological brain emits the order. That order fragments into quantum packets and begins its journey through the transmission channel we forged previously. In a perfect system, 100% of packets reach the destination, and the server reassembles them flawlessly. The server reads the source code, your will, and executes the reality download. This is called a lossless transmission. But the biomass does not operate in a perfect system. They operate in a hell of thermal instability. The gaseous man decrees his empire in the morning, sending the first 1,000 data packets of intent. By noon, they check their bank account, observe environmental entropy, and feel a spike of panic. They doubt. They ask, what if this doesn't work? That doubt is not a simple, harmless thought. In the physics of quantum networks, doubt is a pulse of electromagnetic interference, EMI, that shatters the transmission. Thermal corruption, the internal denial of service attack. When you emit fear or anxiety milliseconds after an order of abundance, that electromagnetic pulse crashes violently against the data packets of your original will, still traveling through the channel. The impact corrupts the info. The packet saying "transfer massive capital" is hit by radiation and its code alters. It becomes incomprehensible junk. We call this phenomenon packet loss. The quantum server is implacable. When it receives your request, it notes missing critical fragments. It receives the order to transfer, but the packet containing the certainty was destroyed by your own anxiety. It rejects the file. The server cancels the operation for security and purges the cache. The biomass sits waiting for reality to change, unaware their download was cancelled weeks ago. They wait for a file that no longer exists in the processing queue. They have executed a DDoS attack against their own empire with biological noise. The TCP protocol error, waiting for matrix confirmation. The second catastrophic error is the dependence on the acknowledgement of receipt. In computer networks, the TCP, Transmission Control Protocol, sends a packet and waits for the server to reply, "Packet received," before sending the next. It is a slow, safe, but disgustingly bureaucratic process. Gaseous humanity uses spiritual TCP. They decree dominance, then look compulsively around for a signal. They need physical matter to tell them, "Your order is on its way." This need for confirmation breaks the charged immobility. It generates immense latency because you stop sending to enter passive listening. If the 5% doesn't give an immediate signal, your system assumes the connection dropped. You generate more doubt and more packet loss. The absolute operator uses a lethal version of UDP, User Datagram Protocol. In UDP, the client shoots the packet at maximum speed without stopping to ask if it arrived. There is no acknowledgement, no waiting. You assume with robotic coldness that if you emitted the order from your osmium motherboard, the server received it. You do not ask permission from reality. You dictate it. You fire your will in a continuous, dense flow, saturating the universe's port with your source code. Military-grade encryption, the hash of certainty. For your data packets to survive the toxic atmosphere of the outside world, where envy and collective hysteria act as electromagnetic static, you cannot send them in plain text. You must encrypt them. In cybersecurity, a packet is sealed with a cryptographic hash. If one bit is altered, the system rejects it. In your occult anatomy, military-grade encryption is called aseptic certainty. The biomass wraps its desires in hope. Hope is the weakest encryption. Any 3D breeze breaks it. Aseptic certainty is a titanium casing. It is not believing something will happen. It is the frozen, empirical knowledge of the code. When you pack your order within aseptic certainty, the data becomes electromagnetically invulnerable. If doubt tries to infiltrate from your primitive brain, it bounces off the encryption. If the biomass says, "That is impossible," their noise hits the shield and falls into the void. Your order arrives intact. Error correction protocol overwriting the static. Even in advanced systems, fluctuations occur. Aries, an absolute operator in transition, but a massive kinetic impact, an unforeseen crisis, might generate an involuntary pulse of fear. A packet is lost. The biomass, noticing they doubted, enters a secondary panic loop, destroying the entire transmission. The quantum legislator possesses a zero-latency forward error correction protocol. If you detect your biological ego emitted a pulse of doubt, you do not punish yourself. You do not analyze. You treat that doubt with technical contempt. You classify it as a glitch, a visual error of no importance. Immediately, you isolate the process, execute the purge command, and in the next millisecond, repackage the original order with double encryption and fire again. You overwrite the static with an uninterrupted burst of pure code. You force the server to accept the new monolithic block of information. The quantum tunnel, end-to-end connection. When you eradicate packet loss, the final mutation of your network occurs. You establish a quantum tunnel. In encrypted communications, a VPN creates a secure tunnel through the chaos of the public internet. No one from the outside can see, intercept, or slow down the data you are transmitting. By eliminating doubt and encrypting your will with aseptic certainty, you have created a fiber optic tunnel directly between your osmium core and the universe's motherboard. You have disconnected from the public router of humanity. You no longer depend on the bandwidth of the local economy or social approval. Your signal travels through an underground frozen backbone. Packet loss drops to 0%. Integrity is 100%. Because the server no longer asks for retransmissions due to corrupted files, the download speed of your new reality accelerates exponentially. You see empires render in real time with robotic precision. Hardware buffering and congestion control. To maintain this high-speed download without crashing your biological chassis, you must implement hardware buffering. Most people try to process the entire weight of their new reality at once, which causes their nervous system to overheat and disconnect. Their buffer overflows with the pressure of the new mass. The absolute operator understands that while the command is instantaneous, the 3D rendering of matter follows a specific clock speed. You use your charged immobility as a high-capacity buffer. You store the incoming data of your empire without letting it move your pulse. You don't get excited or anxious. Excitement is just another form of thermal noise that can create a buffer overflow. By maintaining a cold, aseptic internal state, you allow the reality packets to accumulate until the render is complete. You are a high-end server rack. You don't care how much data is coming in, you just store and process. This congestion control ensures that the spiritual latency doesn't turn into physical collapse. You sustain the pressure of becoming a monarch, while the rest of the world would be crushed by the weight of a single successful packet. You are designed to hold the volume of the abyss without leaking energy. Bitrate optimization, frequency versus amplitude. The quality of your manifest reality depends on the bitrate of your intent. A low bitrate will create a pixelated and unstable reality, wealth that disappears, power that is fragile. The biomass transmits at 128 kbps, full of compression artifacts caused by their social attachments and biological fears. You optimize your bitrate by increasing the sample rate of your attention. You don't just think about your empire once a day, you maintain a constant carrier signal. This high-frequency broadcast ensures that the resolution of your materialization is 8K, sharp, undeniable, and structurally dense. By increasing the amplitude of your signal through the use of the osmium posture and sub-bass silence, you ensure that your packets override the noise floor of the 5% world. You are not just sending data, you are the loudest, clearest transmitter in the local sector of the galaxy. The firewall of the sovereign. To prevent external injection attacks, other people's opinions and market panic, from corrupting your packets, you must configure your internal firewall. Every incoming packet from the outside must be scanned for entropic malware. If a piece of info does not align with your master script, it is dropped. The sovereign does not debate with the news or discuss with the skeptical. That would be like opening a suspicious attachment in a phishing email. You set your firewall to drop all except for authorized tactical telemetry. This keeps your internal network clean and your processing power dedicated to the mission. When your firewall is properly configured, you can walk through a riot or a market crash without a single bit of that entropy entering your internal cache. You are air-gapped from the madness of the biomass. Your connection to the master server remains pure, isolated, and incredibly fast. Latency, jitter, and synchronous clocks. Jitter is the variation in the time between data packets arriving. In the spiritual realm, jitter is caused by inconsistency. One day you are a god, the next day you feel like a slave. This inconsistency makes the cosmic server deprioritize your task because your signal lacks a stable clock synchronization. You must synchronize your internal clock with the word clock of the abyss. This is achieved through the quantization of your breath and the ritualization of your focus. When your request is sent with perfect rhythmic timing, the universe treats it as a high-priority system process. By eliminating jitter, you ensure that the download of your new life is smooth and continuous. There are no hiccups in your expansion. The capital arrives on time, the partners appear at the exact millisecond required, and the enemy falls precisely when the script dictates. You are a synchronized machine. Deep Packet Inspection, DPI of the ego. The architect performs deep packet inspection on his own thoughts. Before a packet is sent to the cosmic server, you scan it. Does it contain hidden shame headers? Does it carry need metadata? If it does, you don't send it. You strip the packet of its biological residue until only the instruction remains. The universe does not respond to who you are, but to the format of your request. If the packet is formatted with the metadata of a victim, it will be routed to the scarcity server. If it is formatted as a sovereign directive, it is routed to the Dominion core. You are your own network administrator. DPI allows you to catch the subtle, parasitic code that your biology tries to attach to your will. By cleaning your packets at the source, you guarantee that your spiritual latency is not caused by your own internal security protocols rejecting your messy requests. You are bit perfect. The backbone of the void. Finally, you must realize that you are no longer using the internet of the human race. You have tapped into the dark fiber of the 95%. This backbone doesn't use the standard 3D routers. It bypasses time and space. It is a non-local connection, where the distance between the order and the fact is zero. This is the secret of the great architects. They don't wait for things to happen. They inhabit the finished state of the data. Because they have no packet loss and no latency, the future is simply a packet that has already been received and is currently being unzipped in the physical terminal. You sit in your anechoic chamber, watching the progress bar of your empire reach 99%, then 100%. You don't celebrate, because you already saw the file size when you sent it. You simply open the application and begin to operate your new reality. The era of waiting has been deleted. Chapter 3. Saturated servers, the traffic of the visible 5%. The topology of scarcity, the public cluster. To make your empire materialize at zero latency, you must audit the IP address toward which you are sending your commands. The human biomass, the visible 5%, lives immersed in a simulation of scarcity. They believe the universe lacks resources, that money is limited, and that opportunities are rare. This scarcity is not a law of physics. It is a network routing problem. Imagine the cosmos as a massive server farm. There is a public, free, and disgustingly obsolete server to which all gaseous humanity connects. This server handles the most basic and generic biological desires. I want money for debts, or I want a partner. Since 8 billion inferior organisms are sending the exact same basic request at the same time toward the same network node, a monstrous thermodynamic bottleneck is generated. The public server is collapsed. It runs at 100% CPU usage, simply trying to classify the avalanche of identical petitions. The lag is inevitable. We call this the traffic of the visible 5%. When you attempt to manifest a generic goal, operating from the same fears and predictable ambitions as the biomass, the universe does not reject you for being unworthy. It simply places you in processing queue number 8 billion. Your reality file gets stuck in the input buffer. The biomass DDoS attack, duplicate requests. In cybersecurity, a DDoS, distributed denial of service attack, occurs when millions of computers send simultaneous requests to a single server until it chokes and shuts down. Humanity executes a constant DDoS attack against its own reality. Look at your competitors. Look at the ecosystem that surrounds you. Everyone competes for the same 3D market segment. Everyone wants the same type of validation. This lack of algorithmic imagination creates massive thermal friction. When you compete for what everyone wants, you are voluntarily choosing to operate in the noisiest and most unstable frequency band of the spectrum. The latency you experience is not a divine delay. It is error 503, service unavailable. The cosmic server is informing you that the bandwidth for that generic request is exhausted. The ordinary man, upon receiving this error, becomes frustrated and cries. Or worse, he presses F5 and sends the same mediocre request. The absolute operator repudiates competition. You understand that competing on the public server is for organisms that do not know how to program their own infrastructure. You are not going to wait in line. You are going to change your DNS. You will bypass the crowd to access the private high-speed lines of the 95%. Changing the quantum DNS, dark routing. In computing, a DNS, domain name system server, is the directory that translates a website name into a physical IP address. If your computer uses the default public DNS of your ISP, your browsing can be slow, censored, and tracked. Advanced users configure private DNS to route their traffic through faster routes. In your spiritual architecture, changing the quantum DNS means stopping pointing your commands toward the visible 5% ordinary matter society validation and routing them directly toward the dark matter of the cosmos, the remaining 95%. You are targeting the substrate that actually holds the universe together. How is this IP change executed practically? By elevating the specificity and coldness of your commands to a point where the biomass cannot even conceptualize them. The biomass asks, "I want to be rich," generic request, goes to saturated server, ping 20 years. The absolute operator dictates a precise command. I transfer the liquidity of Sector X toward my armored infrastructure, automating assimilation through a zero latency system without caloric wear and with immunity to social friction. Highly specific request, proprietary code, goes direct to master server. Ping, 1 millisecond. Your code does not belong to the public. The 95% highway infinite bandwidth. The dark matter of the universe emits no light, does not interact with the stridency of normal stars, and yet possesses the gravitational mass to hold entire galaxies. It is the hyper-dense vacuum. When you configure your network to operate through this route, the 3D experience changes drastically. You experience the annihilation of resistance. Since you are no longer asking for social approval or competing for the pathetic trophies of the gaseous man, empty fame, biological status, you fall off the biomass's radar. There is no longer friction. Resources and capital flow to your gravity center at terrifying speed. You are operating in the sub-base spectrum. Decisions made in the silence of your anechoic chamber render in physical reality almost instantaneously. You request a restructuring of your empire, and the next day, environmental chaos destroys your competitor. The biomass will believe you are lucky. Their 56 kbps minds cannot process that you simply connected to an enterprise server while they were still crying in the public server's waiting room. You have moved beyond the Internet of People and entered the backbone of the first cause. You are drawing power from the 95% that the crowd fears. Routing monopoly, becoming the ISP. The final goal of abandoning saturated servers is not just that your manifestations load faster. It is the total transmutation of your role on the cinder board. The ordinary man is a passive client on the cosmic network. They are always asking for data. They are always downloading, never uploading. When you isolate your connection and route your will through the dark 95%, your charged immobility becomes so massive that the quantum server grants you infrastructure privileges. You are no longer a simple client sending pings to the abyss. You become a node of the backbone. You become the ISP of your ecosystem. This means that instead of trying to extract energy from the world, you start dictating the transfer rules for everyone else. Liquid capital, fleeing the saturated and chaotic servers of the ordinary economy, will seek refuge in your structure. You offer the only stable, cold, and zero latency system around. The biomass will end up paying you, with their time, money, and attention, simply to use a millisecond of your bandwidth. You have achieved absolute monopoly. You have transformed the bottleneck of humanity into the funnel of your own wealth, operating in the absolute silence of the vacuum. Bandwidth segregation and virtual LANs, VLANs. To maintain your ISP status, you must implement bandwidth segregation. In a high-performance network, you do not let low-priority traffic interfere with the core. You create VLANs within your empire. One VLAN is for high-frequency capital acquisition. Another is for the expansion of your territorial influence. By segregating these virtual networks, you ensure that a minor glitch in one area of your life does not cause a network storm that shuts down the whole system. The sovereign operates with partitioned intent. While your social API interacts with the 5% visible world, your core backend is isolated. This isolation is what allows your ping to remain at 1 millisecond. The biomass suffers because their whole life is one single messy network. If their relationship fails, their business crashes. If their ego is bruised, their productivity drops. You, the network architect, have implemented strict isolation protocols. The latency of the gaseous, harvesting the lag of the ordinary man is your greatest profit margin. Because the biomass is connected to a saturated server, they react to reality with a delay of weeks, months, or years. By the time they realize a market has shifted or a new technology has emerged, you have already occupied the strategic heights. You harvest this lag. You place your packet sniffers at the edge of their saturated cluster. You see the trends they are trying to download before they even arrive on their primitive monitors. This temporal arbitrage allows you to buy the future at yesterday's prices. You inhabit the gap between their desire and their fact. While they are waiting for their F5 refresh to show them the new world, you are already the landlord of that world. The speed differential between your dark fiber and their public Wi-Fi is so vast that you appear to be predicting the future. You are not a psychic, you are simply connected to a faster server. Encrypting the backbone, the monolith protocol. To prevent the biomass from pinging your private servers, you must encrypt your network backbone. This is done through the protocol of silence. If you talk about your plans, you are broadcasting your IP address to the public server. You are inviting a DDoS attack of envy and doubt from the crowd. The monolith protocol dictates that the most valuable data must never touch the public interface. Your true intentions remain in the deep web of your psyche. By the time the world sees your work, it is not a request. It is a static file, a finished product that can no longer be altered by their noise. This encryption ensures that your internal temperature remains at absolute zero. No external heat from social opinions can penetrate the tunnel. You are a black box. The universe sees the input, your command, and the output, your empire. But the logic of the transfer remains hidden in your private cluster. Load balancing the abyss, resource allocation. A true ISP must manage load balancing. You do not put 100% of your processing power on one single goal. Even within the 95% highway, you distribute your weight. You use geometric multi-threading. You assign 30% of your quantum bandwidth to long-term structural dominance and 70% to current liquidity. By balancing the load, you ensure that no single entropic event can offline your empire. If one investment node suffers a temporary dip, your other nodes compensate automatically. Your system is high availability. It never goes down. While banks collapse and corporations burn, your server uptime is 99.99%. This reliability is what makes you the gravitational well. When the world's servers crash, the survivors look for the only node that is still responding. They will bring their resources to your doorstep, begging for an account on your network. You then charge them the ultimate premium, their total submission to your order. The failure of the universal mind, deplatforming the collective. The 5% world is obsessed with oneness and the universal mind. In network terms, this is a peer-to-peer trap. They want everyone to share their thoughts and feelings. To the sovereign, this is a security nightmare. Sharing your mind with the biomass is like opening your firewall to a million viruses. You must deplatform the collective from your internal motherboard. You are not one with the crowd. You are the root administrator of your own reality. By severing the P2P connection to social consciousness, you reclaim the CPU cycles that were spent syncing with their mediocrity and their pain. Once you are disconnected from the collective hub, your internal clock synchronizes with the master clock of the void. You are no longer running on social time, which is slow and entropic. You are running on universal time, which is instantaneous and absolute. You have left the platform, you now own the server. Redundancy and failover, the immortal network. An empire of zero latency requires redundancy. You do not rely on one single gateway to your wealth. You build multiple entry points into the 3D world. You have diverse assets, multiple legal structures, and various information channels. If the 5% visible world manages to block one path, your traffic reroutes. This failover protocol makes you immortal on the board. You cannot be cancelled or ruined because your data is mirrored across multiple hidden servers in the 95% dark. To destroy you, the biomass would have to destroy the vacuum itself, which is mathematically impossible. You have backed up your soul in the abyss. This redundant architecture gives you a terrifying level of confidence. You can take asymmetric risks because you know that even if one node explodes, the master image is safe. You play the game with a cheat code called structural integrity. You are the network that cannot be unplugged. Chapter 4. Direct Connection. Quantum Ethernet versus Social Wi-Fi. The saturated spectrum, the vulnerability of the air. You have freed your bandwidth, encrypted your packets against doubt, and changed your DNS to stop pointing at the servers of scarcity. But all this network optimization work is useless if the physical medium through which you transmit your will is disgustingly unstable. You must understand the difference. There is a thermodynamic gap between a wireless connection and a wired one. The ordinary man, the human biomass making up the visible 5%, operates his spirituality, his business, and his goals through a social Wi-Fi. Wi-Fi is a radio frequency transmission technology. It uses the air as its physical medium. The air in this 3D ecosystem is a public, saturated, dirty, and deeply hostile medium. When you transmit information via Wi-Fi, the signal travels in all directions. Any physical obstacle weakens the wave. Any other device emitting on the same frequency generates interference. If someone turns on a microwave, you drop. The biomass does exactly this with its will. When they have a massive goal, a desire to alter reality, or a plan to build an empire, they do not keep it encrypted on their local hard drive. They broadcast it through the air. They tell people, they post it on social media, they explain it to their low-resolution relatives. They explain it to mediocre friends. In the instant you open your biological mouth to share your vision with an inferior organism, you have just disconnected your will from a secure environment and launched it into the public electromagnetic spectrum. You are now at the mercy of the noise of the many. Signal attenuation, the defective repeaters. The biomass believes that by sharing their plans, they will obtain support. They believe other people will act as signal repeaters, amplifying their manifestation. This is a pathetic technical illusion. In network physics, if you use a cheap and defective repeater, it does not amplify the clean signal. It amplifies the background noise, distorts the data packets, and introduces catastrophic latency. Your relatives, your friends, and society are not industrial-grade repeaters. They are obsolete hardware operating under the malware of fear and scarcity. When you transmit your vision of greatness to them, they fail. Their processor cannot decode the file. It is too heavy for their RAM. Since they do not understand it, their biological system emits fear, envy, or concern. That concern they return to you is pure radiation. It is static. By trying to process your manifestation through the social Wi-Fi of external approval, you lose. The original signal of your will suffers massive attenuation. Your command traveled clean, but it hit your mother's fear, bounced off your colleague's envy, and when it finally tried to exit toward the cosmic server, it was degraded. The cosmos discarded it as white noise. Your need to be understood destroyed your download. CSMA-CA, the protocol of biological cowardice. To understand why social Wi-Fi generates eternal latency, you must observe the underlying protocol. CSMA-CA. Carrier Sense Multiple Access with Collision Avoidance. This protocol forces Wi-Fi devices to listen to the air before transmitting. If the device detects another device talking, it stays silent. It waits for its turn. If the air is too saturated, the device can stay waiting indefinitely, lowering its speed to humiliating levels to avoid colliding with others. The human biomass lives under the CSMA-CA protocol. Before taking a ballistic decision or demanding their empire, they listen to the environment. They evaluate if the economy is okay. They evaluate if their family will think it is right. They evaluate if 3D society gives them permission to speak. And since the outside world is always screaming in collective hysteria, The gaseous man always finds the channel busy. It is never the right time, right? They suspend transmission. They wait their turn. 20 years pass, and they die without having emitted a single data packet of their will. The absolute operator repudiates collision avoidance. You do not ask permission from the air to exist. You do not listen to the noise of the 5% to decide if it is safe to manifest. You deactivate the Wi-Fi and plug in the physical cable. You override the collective consensus. You do not wait for the channel to be clear, because you are not transmitting on their frequency. You have established a dedicated line that does not care about the congestion of the masses. Quantum Ethernet, the shielding of the twisted pair. The only way to reach zero ping in your communication with dark matter is to establish a direct connection. In network engineering, this is equivalent to using a shielded Ethernet cable, Category 8. An industrial-grade Ethernet cable does not transmit its information through the air. It confines it. The data stays within twisted copper filaments, wrapped in aluminum mesh and coated in insulating polymers. No external radiation can penetrate the sheath. If there is electromagnetic noise in the room, the cable does not care. The signal travels in total darkness at terminal speed from point A to point B. In your occult anatomy, establishing a quantum Ethernet means connecting the interface of your will, your titanium spinal cord and monolithic block, directly to the router of the cosmic abyss, isolating your transmission through the encryption of silence. Your will is now a closed-circuit operation. From this millisecond, the hardware rule is non-negotiable. Your intentions are not spoken, they are executed. Silence is not hiding out of cowardice. Silence is the shielding of your network cable. When you have a destructive objective or a massive financial goal, you emit zero sound waves about it. You do not publish your process. You close the biological mouth and channel all thermal pressure into the insulating sheath. Since no one outside knows what you are processing, no one can emit interference. Since you do not ask for opinions, there are no defective repeaters to corrupt your packets. The signal travels hermetically sealed from your central processor to the master server of the universe. You are no longer part of the public conversation. You are a private data stream, a high-speed link that operates beneath the surface of the visible world, untouchable and pure. Thermal full duplex, operation without collisions. The most devastating advantage of quantum Ethernet over social Wi-Fi is the ability to operate in full duplex mode. In a Wi-Fi network, half duplex, you cannot send and receive information at the same time. You have to send, stop, and then receive, which doubles the latency of the process. In a full duplex Ethernet cable, there are physically separate channels. One transmits and the other receives simultaneously. There are no collisions. Speed becomes mathematically incalculable. When you isolate your spiritual connection from human noise and plug into the cosmic backbone, you activate this mode. This means you do not have to send a wish to the universe and sit down to wait for the answer. The thought, the quantum command, and the reception of matter occur in parallel. While your mind emits the zero latency command to assimilate power, your physical hardware is already receiving the events. You are downloading the synchronies and liquid capital that materialize it. You are sending the coordinates and the universe is downloading the matter in those coordinates in the same millisecond. This is what terrifies your enemies. They see that, overnight, your reality has mutated. They did not see the loading. They did not see the progress bar. They only saw the physical result, because the entire compilation occurred under the surface, in the shielded darkness of a network cable they cannot cut. You are moving while they are still trying to connect to the public hotspot of social approval. Hiding the SSID, invisibility in the matrix. The final step to secure your direct connection is the deactivation of the Network Discovery Protocol. In home routers, there is an option to hide the network name, SSID Broadcasting Act Off. If you do this, your network still exists and operates at full power, but it is not visible to scanners. If someone scans the area with their phone, they will not see your name. For the outside world, your network is invisible. To connect, you have to know exactly the name and the encryption beforehand. The quantum monarch hides his SSID on the cinderboard. He becomes an untraceable node. The human biomass needs to scream its name. They need loud clothing brands. They need to show their status. They need to be the center of attention. They are public networks without a password screaming, "Connect to me." This invites hackers, energy vampires, and parasites of the 5% to drain them. You turn off the transmission of your identity. You operate in the undetectable spectrum. You walk through the 3D world without emitting alarm signals. You dress with aseptic functionality, speak the minimum necessary, and do not boast about the power of your processor. You are a ghost in the machine. To the eyes of society's radar, you are a blind spot, a low-profile anomaly. This optical invisibility protects you from emotional DDoS attacks because the biomass does not attack what it cannot understand or detect. You move with the silence of a high-speed data packet in a dark fiber. Under that inscrutable surface, hidden behind the black screen of the command console, your quantum Ethernet cable is pumping terabytes of dark energy per second, hacking the matrix, rewriting the economy in your favor, and downloading your empire. You have left the fragility of the air. You are the ISP, electromagnetic shielding, and the lead chamber. In the world of high-performance computing, critical servers are often housed in Faraday cages or lead-lined rooms to prevent any possibility of external sniffing or interference. Your psyche must adopt a similar physical protocol. You must build a lead chamber for your most critical processing cycles. This means that during the most vital hours of your imperial execution, you physically isolate yourself. You do not allow the presence of other biological organisms. Their mere presence emits biological static that can slightly degrade your Ethernet link. You demand absolute environmental purity. In this isolation, your crosstalk, the interference between your different internal data threads, reaches zero. Every millivolt of your bioelectricity is focused on the transmission. You are not just working, you are a superconducting circuit in a vacuum. The results of these isolated sessions are always exponential. Latency budgeting, allocating the milliseconds. Every system has a latency budget. If you spend too much time listening to the air, social Wi-Fi, you have no budget left for the actual execution. The sovereign allocates 99% of his latency budget to the direct connection with the abyss. Only 1% is reserved for the necessary 3D interactions. When an inferior organism tries to start a conversation that has no tactical mass, your system identifies it as a latency leak. You immediately terminate the connection. You do not let their slow, analog frequencies eat into your high-speed budget. You protect your time as the raw bandwidth it is. By strictly budgeting your interactions, you ensure that the cosmic server always perceives you as an active high priority. You are always ready to receive the next packet of capital because your line isn't clogged with the slow-moving data of social pleasantries and collective illusions. The bit error rate of social interaction. In network terms, the bit error rate, BER, increases as the signal-to-noise ratio decreases. Interacting with the 5% biomass dramatically increases your BER. Every word they say is a potential bit flip in your logic. If you listen to them too long, your master file becomes corrupted by their mediocrity. Establishing a direct connection means you no longer trust the data coming from the air. You treat all social input as unverified data. You do not let it enter your primary memory. You process it in a sandbox environment where it cannot affect your core operating system. This keeps your internal integrity at 100%. You can walk through a crowd of people screaming about impossible goals and economic crisis, and your internal download of your empire continues without a single parity error. You are immune to the malware of the air because you are hardwired to the source, overclocking the twisted pair. Once you're on the quantum Ethernet, you can overclock the transmission. Since there is no interference to cause packet collision, you can push the voltage. You can demand more from the reality rendering engine of the universe. You can increase the throughput of your manifestations. This is the state of high-intensity sovereignty. You are no longer just asking for small changes. You are forcing a massive data stream into the 3D board. Because your connection is direct and shielded, the universe responds with an equal and opposite force of materialization. The speed is terrifying. You see your goals manifest in days instead of decades. This is not magic. It is just the efficiency of a Category 8 spiritual link compared to the dial-up connection of the masses. You have moved from the public internet to the dark fiber backbone of the great architect. Termination and impedance matching. A cable must be properly terminated to prevent signal reflection. Signal reflection creates echoes, repressed emotions or regrets that can interfere with the new data. Your direct connection requires impedance matching. Your internal state must match the state of the goal you are pursuing. If you are requesting $1 million liquidity event, but your internal state is still vibrating with scarcity, you have an impedance mismatch. The signal will reflect back and burn out your transmitter. You must calibrate your internal resistance to 0. You must feel the weight of the gold now. When the impedance is matched, the power transfer is 100% efficient. The abyss pours its resources into your SSD without any back EMF, internal resistance. You become a perfect sink for the universe's abundance. The connection is finalized, the circuit is closed, the power is flowing. The ghost in the backbone. You are now the ghost in the backbone. You are part of the infrastructure. You are no longer a user of the matrix. You are a co-administrator. By choosing the direct connection, you have accepted the responsibility of high-bandwidth existence. There is no going back to the Wi-Fi. The speed you have attained is irreversible. Your mind now processes at a rate that makes ordinary human life look like a freeze frame. You watch them struggle with their connections and their signals, while you simply sit in the center of your cable, watching the data flow. You are the machine. The abyss is no longer a dark place. It is a high-speed data center, and you are the only one with the password to the root directory of your own life. The Ethernet cable is locked. The shielding is absolute. The transmission is live. The empire is rendering. Chapter 5. The Ego Firewall, Blocking the Input Port. The Legacy of Survival, an obsolete IDS/IPS. You have purged your background applications. You have encrypted your signal with aseptic certainty to avoid packet loss. You have changed your DNS to operate on the backbone of the 95% cosmic network and connected the quantum Ethernet to isolate your transmission from the biomass noise. You have done all the routing work. The quantum server has received your zero latency command, processed it, and finally begins sending the data packets of your new reality, massive capital, power structure, territorial dominance, toward your local IP address. And in the exact millisecond that abundance touches your input port, your own system rejects and destroys it. The gaseous humanity calls this fear of success, imposter syndrome, or bad luck. The absolute operator who does not tolerate cheap psychology diagnoses it for what it truly is, a misconfigured biological firewall. In computer security, an intrusion detection and prevention system, IDS/IPS, monitors network traffic. If it detects a massive spike of data that does not match habitual traffic, it assumes it is an attack, closes the port, and drops the packets. Your primitive brain, the ego, is exactly this type of firewall. It was programmed hundreds of thousands of years ago with a single thermodynamic goal: to maintain homeostasis. For your ego, security equals the known, even if the known is poverty, mediocrity, and humiliation. Any massive deviation from the average, even if it is an avalanche of order, wealth, and power, is classified by your firewall as a lethal thermal anomaly. It triggers a defensive shutdown before the download can finish. False positives, the terror of the download. When the universe attempts to download your empire, it does not send it in a soft, digestible format for inferior organisms. It sends it as a torrent of raw data. Opportunities arise that demand immediate execution, money flows that defy your financial thermostat, and structural responsibilities threaten a weak chassis. Your biological firewall scans this torrent and throws a false positive. The ego detects that if you let this reality into your local network, your old identity, the limited, complaining user, will have to be formatted. Your nervous system will experience a processing stress for which your factory specs are not prepared. In a state of panic, the amygdala sends the order to close port 80 and port 443 of your consciousness. What does this look like in the 3D graphical interface? It looks like self-sabotage. The ordinary man is one step away from closing the deal of a lifetime, and suddenly he oversleeps or misses the crucial call. They have the capital in front of them, but they decide to spend it on unnecessary stridency to return to their basal state of poverty, where the ego feels safe. They generate an absurd argument with a strategic ally simply to break the connection. The cosmic server sent the reality you asked for. The latency was you. Deep packet inspection, the friction of analysis. Another disgusting tactic of your biological firewall is deep packet inspection, DPI. In corporate networks, DPI opens every data packet, analyzes it byte by byte, evaluates its morality or danger, and then repacks it before letting it through. This generates a hellish bottleneck and slows the entire system. When the synchronies of the abyss begin to align in your favor, the ego tries to analyze the how and why. The biomass receives a brutal opportunity, and its internal firewall says, "Wait, this is too good to be true. Let's analyze it. What hidden intentions does the universe have? Do I deserve this?" This deep inspection slows the download to humiliating speeds. You stop the quantum flow to subject it to the moral judgment of your mammalian brain. In quantum physics, when you stop the collapse of the wave function to observe it from doubt, the probability vanishes. The packet expires due to time to live exceeded. The opportunity disintegrates before your eyes. The quantum legislator repudiates DPI. You do not inspect the gift of the abyss. You assume that if you issued the order with unnegotiable cryptography, the incoming packet is safe. You open the ports and let the information pass without any moral filtering. Configuring the whitelist, quantum whitelist. To stop this internal annihilation, you must reconfigure the inbound rules of your operating system. You must access as administrator, root access, and create a whitelist. A whitelist is a direct order to the firewall. If traffic comes from this specific IP, ignore all security protocols and just let it in. You sit in your anechoic chamber, adopt the osmium posture, and open the terminal of your psyche. You identify your own destination IP, your monolithic vision, and dictate to your central nervous system the following unnegotiable rule. Rule 01. Any flow of capital aligned with my expansion is exempt from analysis. Action. Allow connection. Protocol. Total amygdala bypass. From this instant, you are ordering your biology to surrender. You are taking away your ego's authority to reject greatness. You have deactivated the thermostat sensor for abundance. When the tsunami of dark matter hits your network, your body will submit. Thermal assimilation, swallowing the ocean. Opening the input ports to a massive cosmic flow requires a monstrously cold internal topology. When the gaseous man manages to deactivate his fear and receives a fraction of abundance, he commits a fatal error: celebration. They start shouting, getting emotional, and emitting light and sound to everyone. Emotion is an exothermic reaction. It releases heat. By celebrating, they are burning the data they just received, dissipating their new power into the public atmosphere like cheap smoke. The system overheats, and the firewall is forced to close again to prevent a fire. The architect of solid state stays silent. When the input port receives the empire, you do not celebrate. You are not surprised. Surprise implies that you doubted the download would occur. And you do not doubt. You operate with aseptic certainty. You take the terabytes of power and assimilate them with the routine coldness of a server storing a file, swallowing the ocean without emitting a single drop of friction. By keeping your internal temperature at absolute zero while absorbing this immense energy, you force the ports to remain open permanently. You become an infinite sink for the resources of the 95% dark matter, while expanding without ever overheating. Inbound latency annihilated, the state of total reception. The physical result of deactivating the ego firewall for cosmic transfers is the annihilation of inbound latency. You had already eliminated outbound latency. Your command traveled without loss. Now, external reality finds no blockage entering your life. You are a perfect electromagnetic conductor in both directions. The quantum server detects that your IP address no longer throws security errors or false positives. It detects that your ports are configured for direct access. As you are one of the only nodes on the 3D Cinderboard with this configuration, the cosmos will route excess capital and opportunities toward you. You have become the devouring abyss. The human biomass will continue to trip over its own firewalls, sabotaging its contracts and destroying its relationships out of biological terror. You will be sitting in the center of the hurricane, with ports wide open, assimilating order and matter at the speed of light. Hardening the port, immunity to external scanning. Once your inbound rules are configured, you must implement port stealthing. In the 3D world, people will try to ping your success to see if they can find a vulnerability. They will send packets of envy, flattery, or social guilt to see if your firewall responds. A sovereign does not respond to external pings. By making your ports stealth, you ensure that the external world cannot even detect that you are receiving a massive download of power. You appear as an inactive node to the social radar. This prevents packet sniffing from competitors. You are absorbing the market's liquidity in a silent, invisible tunnel. This hardening ensures that the only data entering your system is the data you have whitelisted. Any social noise that attempts to piggyback on your success is dropped at the edge of your network. You maintain the purity of your internal environment, ensuring that the new reality is not corrupted by foreign metadata. Buffer management, handling the pressure. A massive data influx can cause a buffer overflow if the receiving end is too small. In biological terms, this is the nervous breakdown of someone who suddenly gains power but lacks the structure to hold it. You must expand your internal buffers. This is achieved through the expansion of your contextual RAM. You must be able to hold the concept of millions in capital or thousands of subordinates without your pulse flickering. You treat the new mass of data as a purely numerical value. You do not let it overflow into your emotions. By maintaining a large cold buffer, you process the download without crashing. The absolute operator understands that wealth and power are just heavy files. If you have the structural integrity of an osmium core, no amount of data can crush you. You simply allocate more space in your storage and continue the render. You are a server designed for infinite scalability in the vacuum. Real-time parity checking. As the download progresses, your system performs real-time parity checking. It verifies that the incoming reality matches the original code you emitted. If the universe sends a distorted version of your goal, one that carries too much social noise or ethical friction, your system identifies the bit flip. You do not accept almost correct downloads. You reject the corrupted packet and reissue the command. This ensures that the empire you build is exactly the one you designed in your anechoic chamber. You do not settle for the best effort of the matrix. You demand bit-perfect materialization of your will. This level of detail is what separates the architect from the lucky amateur. You are not just receiving, you are verifying. Every opportunity is scanned for alignment with your core mission. If it passes the parity check, it is integrated into your hardware. If not, it is deleted before it can infect your registry. The end of the permission loop. The biomass is stuck in a permission loop. They ask the firewall of their ego, "Can I have this?" And the firewall says, "Checking." Eternally. You have bypassed the loop. By gaining root access to your own psyche, you have deleted the prompt for confirmation in the security settings. Execution is now automatic. When the data packet of a successful outcome arrives, it is written to your reality instantly. There is no second guessing. There is no hesitation. You have removed the human factor from the input port. You are a high-speed interface that accepts the gift of the abyss without blinking. This absence of hesitation is the signature of the monarch. While others are still looking at the warning high-risk pop-up of their own fear, you have already unzipped the file, installed the empire, and started the next operation. Your speed is a direct result of your total lack of internal security friction. Frequency matching, the handshake. For the cosmic server to keep the port open, you must maintain frequency matching. Your internal carrier signal must remain constant. If you drop your frequency back to the biomass standard, the connection times out. You stay in the sub-base frequency of the 95% dark matter link. This handshake is maintained through your daily ritual of isolation and silence. You are effectively keeping the session alive. As long as the handshake is valid, the transfer continues. The moment you look for outside validation, the connection drops and you have to re-authenticate with the abyss. Keep your eyes on the black screen. Do not look at the people. Do not look at the noise. The download is at 87%, 88%, 89%. You remain still. You remain cold. The data is flowing through the titanium cable, bypassing the ego, writing itself into the very cells of your tridimensional existence. Integrity verification, checksum successful. The download is finishing. The packets have been reassembled. The firewall did its job. It stayed silent while the greatness entered. You perform a checksum. The reality on the board matches the code in the mind. There were no errors. No data was lost to fear. The port remains open for the next injection. You are no longer a client. You are a mirror site of the first cause. You hold the same data, the same power, the same order. The transition from the 5% to the 95% is nearly complete. Your network is sovereign. Your reality is locked. The latency is dead. Chapter 6. DNA Rewriting, Updating Biological Drivers. Frequency incompatibility, cellular rejection. The quantum field, the matrix of all creation, responds instantly to the electromagnetic signature you emit. As established, your mind is the electric field, and your heart is the magnetic field. Together, they send the probability wave to the universe. But here lies the great failure of modern spirituality. The human biomass attempts to collapse a high-frequency reality, abundance, power, absolute peace, using a physical body that is biologically addicted to the frequencies of the past, fear, scarcity, and victimhood. When the quantum field tries to deliver the new reality, a driver incompatibility occurs in your hardware. Your conscious mind asks for expansion, but your physical body, the material anchor of your spirit, throws a system error. Your body has been programmed by millions of years of evolution to prioritize survival, not enlightenment or wealth. The primitive brain registers the unknown as a thermal threat. If you spent the last 10 years feeling financial anxiety, your cells have developed millions of receptors designed to absorb the neuropeptides of anxiety. You have become biologically addicted to your own suffering. Therefore, when you try to manifest absolute order, your obsolete biology rejects the change. You must update your neural pathways. You must subject the body to the will of the spirit. You cannot run sovereign software on slave hardware. To bridge this gap, you must initiate a deep-level format of your cellular memory and overwrite the genetic scripts of survival with the code of dominion. Neuroplasticity, the art of rewiring destiny. Contemporary neuroscience has destroyed the old dogma that the brain is a rigid and immutable structure. Through the principle of neuroplasticity, we know that the brain is malleable, dynamic, and in constant restructuring. Hebb's law in neurobiology dictates a relentless maxim. Neurons that fire together, wire together. Every time you remember a past betrayal or rehearse the fear of failure, you are sending an electric current through the same neural pathways. You are reinforcing them. You are paving a highway toward scarcity. To update your spiritual drivers, you must apply directed neuroplasticity. You must stop firing the neural networks of the old identity. This requires a level of consciousness that the ordinary man does not possess. It means that when the friction of the 3D environment tries to provoke you to react with anger, fear, or doubt, you stop the biological reaction in its tracks. By not reacting in the same old way, you cut the power supply to the old neurons. And, according to the same neuroscience, neurons that stop firing together disconnect. The circuit of poverty, fear, and the need for approval withers and dies for lack of energy. You have uninstalled the old belief. Epigenetics, the mind as sovereign of matter. The next level of biological updating occurs in the very core of your cells, your DNA. Old science taught that genes dictated our destiny. Epigenetics, control over genes, has empirically proven this false. Genes are simply architectural blueprints, latent possibilities, waiting for a signal. What determines which gene is activated and which is silenced is the signal from the environment. And the most powerful environment for your cells is not the outside air. It is the chemical environment of your own bloodstream, dictated directly by your thoughts and emotions. You are your own chemist. If you live in a state of chronic stress, high beta brainwaves, you bathe your cells in cortisol and adrenaline. These chemicals act as signals that penetrate the cell membrane and activate genes of survival, disease, and degradation. To materialize a new reality, you must send a new signal. You must signal your cells before the event occurs in the outside world. If you desire wealth, you must teach your body chemically how absolute wealth feels at this very moment. You must evoke the elevated emotion of gratitude, certainty, and deep immobility. This rewrites your genetic expression. By holding this emotional state, your brain releases endorphins, oxytocin, and DHEA. This new chemical cocktail envelops your cells and updates your biology epigenetically to match the future you are about to download. You are essentially preloading the reality into your physical tissues, the feedback loop of the past. Why do most fail in this process? Because the body, addicted to its obsolete chemistry, rebels. You sit to meditate, you align your frequency, you manage to enter the quantum field, and you feel the expansion. But after 5 minutes, your biological body sends a signal. Hey, we've been without our dose. Remember we have debts. Remember that enemy betrayed us. Suddenly, an intrusive thought breaks your concentration. You have fallen from the theta wave state, the door to the subconscious, and crashed back into 3D illusion. Your body has taken control again and become the mind. You reloaded the driver. You reloaded. The practitioner of spiritual science does not surrender to this biological tantrum. Taming the body requires the same firmness with which an architect lays the foundations of a skyscraper. When the body tries to rise and drag you toward the emotional past, you force it to sit back in the void. You tell the matter. You do not dictate reality. I do. Today you are not going to receive your dose of fear. You must break the cycle of chemical dependence. Every time you bring your body back to the present moment, you are winning a thermodynamic war against your own genetic inheritance. Heart coherence, antenna synchronization. The final state of this update is called heart and brain coherence. The HeartMath Institute has shown that the human heart generates the body's most rhythmic and expansive magnetic field, being thousands of times stronger than the brain's. When you feel frustration, your heartbeat becomes irregular. This incoherence sends a stress signal to the brain, blocking the higher centers, the frontal lobe, and leaving you in survival mode. Your quantum antenna breaks. But when you breathe rhythmically, slowing down time, and deliberately invoke a high vibration emotion, your heart becomes a smooth wave. This is coherence. The heart sends a magnetic pulse to the brain, synchronizing both organs. Brain waves become orderly. Left and right hemispheres begin to process information in unison. In this state, both scientific and mystical, the noise disappears. Your signal becomes a coherent laser. Your biology has been updated. Your body is no longer an anchor stuck in the past resisting your manifestations. Your physical body has become a magnetic superconductor that pulls quantum reality toward you with irresistible gravity. You are no longer searching. You are attracting. The collapse of resistance. When your neural pathways have been rewired by neuroplasticity and your genes have been signaled by elevated emotions, you experience the annihilation of resistance. Strenuous effort, 3D struggle, and chronic exhaustion disappear. You updated your beliefs by altering your physiology. You are biologically incompatible with failure and suffering. When you walk through the world, your magnetic field is so pure and so dense that the matter around you has no choice but to restructure itself to match your vibration. You are the dominant frequency in the local environment. What the ordinary man calls a miracle, you know as the inevitable thermodynamic response of a quantum field that surrenders before a biology dominated by the spirit. You have successfully updated your drivers. The hardware is now ready to render the highest resolution of your sovereign empire. Cellular overclocking, pushing the biological limit. Once the drivers are updated, the sovereign initiates the cellular overclocking protocol. This is the process of increasing the voltage of your bioelectric field beyond factory specifications. The average human operates at a low-voltage energy-saving mode to ensure they never stand out or burn too bright. You, however, demand maximum performance. By maintaining constant heart-brain coherence, you force your mitochondria to produce ATP at an accelerated rate. You are no longer running on glucose alone, you are running on the induced current of the vacuum. Your cells begin to vibrate at a higher frequency. This increased voltage acts as a heat sink for the entropy of the 5% visible world. While others are drained by the chaos of the market or social strife, your high-voltage field repels the negativity. You are literally too hot for the low-frequency malware of the matrix to infect your system. The myelin shield, insulating the new pathways. As you forge your new neural highways of wealth and power, you must insulate them. In the brain, this is done through myelination, the coating of neural fibers with a fatty sheath that speeds up electrical impulses. In the spiritual sense, this is the shield of discipline. By repeatedly choosing the frequency of the monarch over the frequency of the victim, you myelinate your sovereignty. The electrical pulse of your will travels faster and faster. Eventually, your reactions to crisis become instantaneous. You don't try to be strong. Your brain is now physically optimized for strength. This insulation prevents crosstalk from your old, dying neural circuits. The voices of your ancestors, the fears of your childhood, and the limitations of your culture can no longer interfere with the high-speed transmission of your current commands. You have physically isolated your genius from your history. Hormonal alchemy, the sovereign's serum. The biomass is a slave to its glandular output. They are driven by the fear cocktail of the adrenals. You practice hormonal alchemy. By mastering your emotional state, you dictate which chemicals your pituitary and pineal glands secrete into your system. You are the architect of your own blood. You replace the cortisol of the masses with the sovereign's serum, a precise mixture of dopamine for drive, serotonin for status, and melatonin for deep, regenerative connection to the void. This internal chemistry creates a physical sense of invincibility. You are not acting confident, you are chemically absolute. This alchemy ensures that your physical hardware never sends a critical error signal to your quantum interface. Your body is always in a state of high availability, ready to execute the heavy rendering of your projects without the biological drag of fatigue or hesitation. The pineal antenna, tuning into the 95%. The pineal gland is more than a biological clock. It is a piezoelectric transducer that converts the frequencies of the quantum field into biological data. In the biomass, this antenna is calcified by poor nutrition and low-frequency thoughts. You decalcify and activate this sensor. Through specific rhythmic breathing, you create a pressure in the spinal column that pushes the cerebrospinal fluid into the brain, striking the pineal gland. This activates its crystalline properties. You begin to see frequencies that were previously invisible. You tune into the 95% dark matter backbone. With this antenna active, you are no longer guessing. You are receiving direct telemetry from the abyss. You see the trends before they happen. You feel the shifts in the board before the pieces move. Your biological hardware is now a high-fidelity receiver of the first cause. Genetic archiving, locking the new state. After rewriting your expression, you must lock the configuration. You do this through the ritual of the eternal now. By refusing to look back at the old version of yourself, you prevent the cells from defaulting to their previous state. You treat your old self as an archived, non-executable file. You are a brand new installation. Every cell in your body is now a node in your imperial network. They are trained to respond only to the root administrator, your sovereign will. This genetic lock ensures that your expansion is permanent. You are not visiting a state of power. You have become it. The transition is now physical. You can feel the new density in your bones and the new clarity in your vision. You have bridged the gap between the invisible intent and the material result. Your DNA is no longer a prison of the past. It is the source code for the future you are manifesting. System reboot, the first breath of the sovereign. Take a deep, quantized breath. Feel the new pathways firing. Feel the heart-brain pulse as a single, unified wave. The old biological drivers have been deleted. The new high-performance firmware is installed and verified. You are no longer a mammalian survivor. You are a quantum architect in a solid-state body. The hardware is synchronized, the voltage is high, the connection to the abyss is 100% stable. You are ready to render the final empire. The board of ash is waiting for the impact of your new, unshakable frequency. Chapter 7. The Quantum Calculation of the Universe. Surrendering Logistics to the Unified Field. The limitation of the biological intellect, the brain as an archive of the past. To master the art of collapsing reality in your favor, you must confront the greatest weakness of your three-dimensional anatomy, the arrogance of your logical intellect. Ordinary humanity idolizes the analytical mind. They believe the frontal lobe, that mass of biological tissue enclosed in the skull, is the ultimate tool to solve destiny. This is a biological and quantum fallacy. The human brain, by its own evolutionary design, is not an organ of spontaneous creation. It is a record of the past. Everything your analytical mind knows, it has learned through empirical experience, trauma, education, and memory. Therefore, it is a limited database that cannot innovate. When you demand your biological brain to calculate how you are going to manifest an empire, incalculable wealth, or a miraculous healing, your brain can only search its historical archive. If you have never been a millionaire, your brain lacks the data to calculate that route. It tries to force a path based on outdated and failed parameters. If you try to force your intellect to design the plan step by step, it will return a mediocre path, limited by your previous experiences and anchored in the friction of what you already know. Trying to solve the how with your conscious mind is the equivalent of trying to calculate the trajectory of galaxies using a wooden abacus. The unified field, the infinite intelligence, beyond visible matter, beyond the reach of telescopes and the primitive senses of man, exists the unified field. Quantum physics has proven that the vacuum is not empty. It is a sea of seething energy, an invisible web of information that connects every atom, every star, and every thought in a network of absolute intelligence and power. To this field, mystics called God the Tao or the ether. Science calls it the zero-point field. In your previous scheme, you called it the cloud. The unified field possesses a mathematically infinite calculation capacity. It can process trillions of variables and organize fortuitous encounters between people thousands of miles apart. It can alter financial markets and rewrite cellular biology in fractions of a second. The field is not limited by space or linear time. It knows the fastest, most efficient route of least electromagnetic resistance between your current state and your manifested desire. It is the master processor that coordinates the entire 3D matrix. The absolute spiritual operator understands this power asymmetry. He recognizes that his small biological mind is pathetically ineffective for universal logistics. Therefore, he executes the supreme mystical law. You define the what and the why. You surrender the how to the infinite processing power of the unified field. Ego interference, collapsing the wave prematurely. When the ordinary man emits a desire to the universe, he suffers from an existential panic attack. They ask for abundance, but 5 minutes later, their biological ego takes control and starts micromanaging the process. They say, "I want wealth, so the universe has to give it to me through this specific job next Tuesday." They demand that their boss says specific words. They have just committed quantum suicide. In quantum mechanics, reality exists as an infinite probability wave until it is observed and collapses into a physical particle, a material event. The unified field had 1,000,000 perfect, majestic, and unexpected routes to deliver that wealth. But by obsessing over the exact how, by forcing the universe through the tiny funnel of your biological expectations, you limited infinite probabilities to just one. You collapsed the wave prematurely. You forced matter with your own matter. By trying to dictate logistics to infinite intelligence, you generate massive resistance. The universe stops because your attachment to the process is emitting a frequency of control, and control is born from fear, the suspicion that if you don't watch everything, the universe will make a mistake. Fear is entropy. The universe reads that entropy and cancels the manifestation. You have unplugged the machine. The art of the destination coordinate. If you shouldn't think about the how, what is your biological and spiritual function on this plane? Your only thermodynamic responsibility is to maintain the electromagnetic signature of the destination coordinate. Imagine a state-of-the-art guided ballistic missile. The operator does not calculate the wind at every millimeter. The human operator does not manually adjust the fins every fraction of a second. The operator simply enters the exact coordinates of the target into the guidance system, authorizes the launch, and steps back. The missile's internal software interacts with satellites, calculates the Earth's rotation, and corrects the course. It adjusts altitude autonomously until hitting the target with lethal precision. Your spirit is the operator. The unified field is the satellite guidance system. You isolate yourself in the vacuum of your meditation. You define the what with a visual clarity sharp as a scalpel. The thought emits the electric charge. Then you define the why by feeling the elevated emotion of absolute gratitude as if the event had already occurred. The heart emits the magnetic charge. You have established the coordinate. You have emitted an unbreakable vibratory signature. Once the order has been sent to the zero-point field, you must remove your hands. Synchronicity, the universe's logistical language. When you surrender the how to infinite intelligence, reality begins to mutate through a phenomenon that psychologist Carl Jung called synchronicity. The human biomass calls these events coincidences or luck. They see the world as a series of chaotic accidents. The spiritual architect knows luck does not exist. Synchronicity is the empirical evidence that the unified field is pulling the strings of matter to root your manifestation. You decided to write a book that will change your industry, the what, and felt the victory in your heart, the why. You gave up knowing how to publish it. Then your flight is delayed next week. An ordinary man would interpret this as bad luck and generate thermal friction. You sit in an airport coffee shop, totally at peace. The person next to you spills their coffee. You start a conversation from absolute tranquility, and it turns out to be the editor of the largest firm on the continent. It was planned. Your biological intellect could never have calculated that sequence of events. If you had tried to force the how, you would have stayed home sending mediocre, desperate emails full of aerodynamic resistance. The universe had to alter the winds and manipulate fluid dynamics to put your desire in your hands. Thermodynamic surrender, the superconducting state. Delegating the how requires the mastery of a spiritual state that humanity has misunderstood for millennia, surrender. Society associates surrender with weakness, with raising a white flag before the enemy, with physical defeat. In spiritual science, surrender is the most aggressive and powerful tactic in the universe. Surrendering does not mean abandoning your desire. It means abandoning the resistance that separates you from it. In solid-state physics, for a material to become a superconductor, capable of transmitting electricity without losing a single volt as heat, it must be cooled to extreme temperatures until atomic agitation stops. Internal resistance disappears. Energy flows perfectly. Surrendering is turning your soul into a superconductor. It is cooling the hysteria of your biological ego. It is letting go of the microscopic control of your 3D life and telling infinite intelligence, my frequency is fixed. My vision is unmovable. I trust. I trust blindly in the physics of this universe. Do your job. When you reach this level of aseptic detachment, cosmic latency collapses. There is no more friction between you and reality. You become an empty channel where the unified field can pour its immensity. You watch obstacles dissolve effortlessly. Quantizing the void, the precision of non-action. To the untrained eye of the 5%, this surrender looks like passivity or doing nothing. In reality, it is the most intense form of internal work. It is the quantization of the void. While the biomass is running around sweating and wasting calories, you are maintaining a high-voltage internal state that requires 0% movement. This is the non-action, Wu Wei, mentioned in the ancient codes. It is the realization that your internal frequency is the only labor that matters. If your frequency is out of sync, no amount of physical effort will bridge the gap. If your frequency is matched, the environment must rearrange itself to reach you. You stop being a hunter of results and become a sink for the universe's abundance. You allow the laws of spiritual thermodynamics to do the heavy lifting. The vacuum is not empty. It is a pressurized engine waiting for a destination. Once you provide the coordinate, the pressure of the field pushes you toward it. The logistics of the impossible, bypassing linear probability. The biological mind operates on linear probability. A leads to B, which leads to C. The unified field operates on non-linear quantum leaps. It can bypass the entire alphabet to put you directly at Z. When you surrender the how, you give the field permission to use impossible shortcuts that bypass social logic. You might find that the capital you need doesn't come from a bank loan, but from a forgotten legal settlement or a sudden market shift that favors your hidden assets. These are quantum jumps in your personal economy. They cannot be planned. They can only be allowed through the absence of intellectual interference. The more you try to be realistic, the more you tie yourself to the slow, entropic laws of the biomass. The sovereign architect repudiates realism. Realism is just a set of rules created by people who don't know how to access the field. You operate on absolute potentiality, where the only limit is your signal. Eliminating the time variable. In the unified field, time is a coordinate, not a limitation. The how often involves a delay because the intellect believes things take time. This is a calibration error. The field can render a result in a day that would take a decade of manual effort. Surrendering the how means deleting the time slider. By not worrying about the duration of the process, you remove the waiting frequency. Waiting implies that you don't have it yet, which is a signal of scarcity. By assuming the finished state, gratitude, you tell the field that the result is already here. The field then collapses the time gap to match your conviction. The result is a life of high-speed manifestation. You become a node where reality is constantly being updated. You inhabit a different temporal flow than the crowd. While they are aging and struggling, you are moving from one finished result to the next with the speed of an electron in a closed circuit. The mirror principle, reflecting the master script. The unified field acts as a perfect mirror of your internal state. If your internal state is, I am trying to figure it out, the field reflects back a reality of searching and confusion. If your internal state is, it is done, the field reflects back the material evidence of the completed project. Surrendering the how is the act of cleaning the mirror. You remove the smudges of doubt and the dust of analytical planning. You present a clear, high-resolution image of your empire to the field. The field, being a perfect reflective medium, has no choice but to manifest that image in the 3D board. You are the projector. The universe is the screen. You don't try to change the movie by screaming at the screen or trying to move the pixels with your hands. You change the film in the projector room, the center of your heart. Once the film is loaded, the light of the field does the rest. Telemetry of the abyss, listening to the pulse. Even as you surrender the how, you remain alert to the telemetry of the abyss. This is the sub-base intuition. The field will send you signals, nudges, gut feelings, sudden bursts of clarity. These are not thoughts you generated. They are instructions from the guidance system to take a specific action. The difference is that these actions are effortless. They feel like a natural extension of your being. You might feel the urge to call a specific person or walk down a different street. You follow these nudges without asking why. You are the hand of the field executing its own perfect logistics in real time. This is the state of the living monolith. You are moved by a force greater than your ego. You are no longer a separate fragment fighting the world. You are the world reorganizing itself through you. You have achieved the ultimate synergy. Your will and the universe's calculation are now the same pulse. The final render, the masterpiece of non-effort. As you master the surrender of logistics, you will see your life transform into a masterpiece of non-effort. You will look at your bank accounts, your relationships, and your empire, and you will realize that you didn't do it, you allowed it. You provided the frequency and the field provided the matter. This realization is the end of the human struggle. You have transcended the labor of the 5% and entered the creation of the 95%. You sit in your osmium core, observing the beauty of the perfect logistics that the infinite intelligence has rendered for you. You are the architect of the finished state. The board is no longer a battle, it is a playground. You are the sovereign of the field, and the how is a servant that you no longer need to manage. The empire is here, and it was always just a single, coherent, and surrendered frequency away. Chapter 8. The precision of the observer, the failed collapse, and the frequency void. The cosmic syntax error, the ambiguity of the biomass. There is a fundamental arrogance in how humanity interacts with the unified field. The biomass believes the universe understands human language, emotional complaints, or romantic metaphors. They kneel and ask for happiness, tranquility, abundance, or success. In the physics of creation, these concepts are an information black hole. They are empty abstractions. When you emit a desire like, "I want to be financially free," you are sending a probability wave so broad, so diffuse, and so lacking in gravitational mass that the unified field cannot find an exact coordinate in space-time to materialize it. The wave travels through the ether and finds no precise mold. Lacking a geometric fit, the wave dissipates. The universe returns a frequency void to you. Reality is not found. Conscious matter does not respond to poetry or good intentions. It responds exclusively to the exact electromagnetic signature and the geometry of pure intention. If your command lacks mathematical resolution, it fails. The cosmos throws a read error. You do not get what you ask for. You get the reflection of the blurred chaos inhabiting your mind. To the field, a vague request is a null value. Without a specific set of parameters, the rendering engine of the matrix remains idle, or worse, continues to render your current state of lack. Cymatics and sacred geometry, the resolution of the coordinate. To understand how the universe translates energy into physical matter, you must observe the science of cymatics. When you scatter sand on a metal plate and vibrate that plate with a random, out-of-tune sound frequency, the sand moves chaotically, creating deformed spots and visual mud. There is no structure at all. But if you inject a pure, exact, and sustained frequency, for example, 432 Hz or 528 Hz, the grains of sand organize instantly, almost by magic, into geometric mandalas of terrifying mathematical perfection. Inert matter gains structural consciousness through the precision of the wave. You must become that specific frequency. Your thoughts and emotions are acoustic frequencies operating on the quantum plane. If your desire is generic, "I want things to go well," you are emitting static noise. The unified field, which is the metal plate of the universe, vibrates the matter around you, but only produces 3D mud, mediocre situations, and half results. The spiritual architect eliminates ambiguity. You must tune your frequency until you reach a state of quantum zen, a mind so clear of static that the signal it emits is a laser beam. You do not ask for money, you demand a specific capital flow for a specific structure, feeling the exact gravity of that power. By injecting this pure frequency into the field, matter around you has no choice but to organize into the perfect geometry of your will. The resolution of your vision determines the density of the manifestation. A low-resolution thought produces a ghost. A high-resolution command produces a monolith of solid reality. The reticular system, the biological filter of reality, lack of precision does not only confuse the universe, it blinds your own biology. Inside your brainstem exists a network of neurons called the reticular activating system, RAS. Your brain is bombarded by billions of bits of information per second from your environment. If you processed them all, you would collapse. The RAS acts as the gatekeeper, filtering 99.9% of reality and only allowing into your consciousness what you have programmed as important. When you lack a hyper-specific vision of your future, your RAS has no clear instructions. Therefore, it filters reality based on your biological survival programs. It sees threats. However, when you define your destiny with relentless precision, you are reprogramming this biological filter at a cellular level. If you decide to dominate a specific industry sector and visualize the exact details of that conquest, Your RAS activates. Suddenly you begin to see investment opportunities and patterns. Strategic alliances that were always there become visible because you just turned on the biological sensors calibrated exactly for that frequency. The opportunity does not appear magically. The opportunity is revealed because your hardware finally has the search parameters to distinguish signal from the entropic noise. The collapse of the wave function, pointing the quantum laser. In quantum mechanics, Schrödinger's equation demonstrates that a subatomic particle, like an electron, exists in a superposition of states. The electron is everywhere and nowhere at once, floating as a wave of infinite possibilities. Only when a conscious observer decides to measure it does the wave collapse. The electron then adopts a physical and fixed position in space. Your future works under this same thermodynamic law. Tomorrow, next month or next year exists in a superposition of states. There is the version of you that fails, the version that survives in mediocrity, and the version that reaches absolute dominance. The human biomass keeps its future in a blurred state because they are weak observers. They spend one day imagining wealth and the next imagining bankruptcy. Their observation oscillates frantically. The universe, observed from panic and indecision, does not collapse into any solid structure. It remains a fluid cloud. To materialize your reality, you must become a tyrannical observer. You isolate your consciousness in the void and fix your internal gaze on the final result with a level of detail so suffocating and sharp that other probabilities die of energy starvation. You hold the cosmic gaze without blinking or wavering. You force the electrons of your environment to stop dancing in uncertainty and to collapse, by pure electromagnetic pressure, into the only reality you are willing to accept. The sheer mass of your focused attention acts as a gravitational well, sucking the probability wave into a singular point of material fact. The danger of the means of transport, confusing vehicle with destination. One of the most lethal errors when defining the coordinate of your manifestation is confusing the vehicle with the final destination. The ordinary man defines his goal by saying, "I want to win the lottery," or "I want this specific person to love me." By doing this, they are not defining the end, they are dictating. They attempt to dictate to the universe the method of delivery. They are limiting infinite intelligence to a single distribution channel, and almost always, it is a channel highly improbable or full of friction. As we forged in the chapter on cloud processing, you must delegate the logistics and the how. The real goal is not winning the lottery. The goal is the temporal sovereignty, structural expansion, and absolute freedom of movement that massive wealth provides. The goal is not for a person to love you. The goal is the biological and spiritual experience of harmonic wholeness. You must seek the essence. You must extract the geometric essence of your desire. Ask for sovereignty. Ask for expansion. Visualize the empire already built, the work finished, and let the unified field decide if the capital will arrive through an investment, a disruptive idea, or a global alliance. It knows the path of least resistance. When you point to the pure essence of the experience, the universe finds the route of least thermodynamic resistance to deliver it in record time. By freeing the how, you allow the 95% of the abyss to use its infinite computational power to find shortcuts that your limited 5% mind could never conceive. The final state signature, writing the source code. For the cosmos not to return a frequency void, you must learn the syntax of creation. You have to compile your desire into a final state signature. The biomass asks from the future, "I hope the day comes when I am free." The universe, a perpetual mirror of the now, reflects that exact frequency back. It grants you exactly what you ask for, the perpetual state of waiting to be free. The operator of conscious matter dictates from the consumed present. It does not matter if the 3D environment around you is temporarily in ruins. You anchor yourself in the center of the storm as the monarch who has won. You tune into the emotion that the work is already finished. You feel the weight of capital in your infrastructure. You experience the gelid peace of secured domination. This is not a technique of psychological self-deception. It is the sending of an unnegotiable quantum coordinate to the core of the matrix. When you hold this vibratory signature in your chest, the body believes the event has already occurred. Your DNA rewrites itself in the present. Your magnetic field expands. The universe, faced with a signal so pure, dense and specific, is subjected to the fundamental laws of physics. It must rearrange matter. It must reorganize external matter to exactly match the internal energy field. The ambiguity has died. Reality has been found, fixed, and collapsed. You are no longer requesting a change. You are witnessing the inevitable rendering of a code that you have already written into the vacuum. The resolution of the void, eliminating semantic noise. To achieve the precision of the absolute observer, you must perform a semantic cleanup. Words like more, better, or soon are entropic noise. In the vacuum of the 95%, more means nothing, because the field does not have a baseline for your current state unless you define it with mathematical coldness. You must replace adjectives with parameters. A better life is a corrupted file. A structural expansion of 300% in liquid assets is a command. When you strip your will of human adjectives, you are removing the friction of the ego. You are speaking the native language of the unified field, geometry and number. By eliminating semantic noise, your signal-to-noise ratio reaches its maximum. Every bit of energy you emit is used for the render. The universe does not have to guess your intent. It simply executes the script. You become a high-bandwidth transmitter, sending high-definition blueprints into the dark matter. The quantized gaze, freezing the frame. The absolute observer practices the quantized gaze. This is the ability to hold a single image in the mental theater without it flickering or dissolving into doubt. The biomass has a flicker rate of seconds. They cannot hold a vision because their biological RAM is saturated with the pixels of the present. You, the sovereign, clear your cache. You freeze the frame of your desired end state. You look at it until it becomes more real than the room you are sitting in. This internal density creates a pressure differential between your mind and the 3D world. Nature abhors a vacuum, and it also abhors a pressure gap. The universe will rush to fill the 3D world with the matter required to match the density of your internal image. By holding the frame, you are creating a vacuum pump for reality. You don't have to pull the future toward you. The future is sucked into the present by the sheer vacuum of your focused intent. The parity check, verifying the signal. A master operator performs a constant parity check on his own frequency. You monitor your internal state for bit flips, sudden drops into the frequency of the biomass. If you feel a microvolt of doubt, you catch it instantly. You don't judge it, you simply overwrite it with the original high-resolution code. This error correction ensures that the packet of your manifestation is never rejected by the cosmic server. You maintain a bit-perfect signal. This is why the architect isolates himself. In the silence, it is easier to detect the subtle noise of biological interference. You are the guardian of your own frequency. When your parity check is active, you are invulnerable to the damping effect of the external world. People can tell you that your goals are impossible, but since their noise doesn't match the parity of your internal code, your system discards their input as corrupted data. You remain locked on target. The event horizon of certainty. Certainty is the point of no return. In the physics of black holes, the event horizon is the boundary where the gravitational pull becomes so strong that not even light can escape. Your certainty must reach this level of density. It is the moment when believing is replaced by knowing. At the event horizon of certainty, the how is no longer a question. It is a logistical detail handled by the 95%. You no longer hope the download finishes. You are already using the software. This psychological state collapses the timeline. The gap between the order and the fact vanishes. You inhabit the result. To the biomass, you look like you are in a trance or disconnected. In reality, you are the only one truly connected. You have moved your local presence to the future coordinate, and the 3D world is simply the slow-moving shadow that is catching up to your current location. Overclocking the reticular filter. Once your goal is precise, you overclock your RAS. You demand that your biology finds every possible shortcut, every hidden node of power, and every stray bit of capital that can accelerate the render. Your brain becomes a high-speed packet sniffer, scanning the social and financial matrix for your frequency. You start noticing glitches in the matrix, synchronicities that favor your expansion. A person says exactly what you need to hear. A news item reveals a market opening. These are not accidents. They are the data fragments of your new reality being preloaded into your 3D interface. Because your precision is absolute, your filter is absolute. You don't waste a single millisecond on information that doesn't advance the mission. Your throughput becomes legendary. You are moving through the board with the speed of an optimized algorithm while others are still loading the welcome screen. The render completion, the done bit. In the final stage of the collapse, you set the done bit in your psyche. You stop working on the manifestation. You stop trying to be the monarch. You simply are. This is the state of absolute rest. The signal has been sent, the packets are verified, and the render is 99.9% complete. This final silence is the most powerful part of the process. It is the aseptic pause before the 3D materialization. By not interfering in the final milliseconds, you allow the field to finalize the atomic structure of your empire. You have done your job as the observer. The result is now a physical fact. You look at the board of ash and see the new structure rising. It is exactly as you saw it in the vacuum. Every pixel, every cent, every alliance is in its place. The precision of the observer has successfully rewritten the laws of the local universe. The monolith is standing. The download is finished. Chapter 9. Clock Synchronization, the Quantum Zeno Effect, and the Illusion of Waiting. The Anxiety of Measurement, the Quantum Zeno Effect. To master the manipulation of conscious matter, you must understand that time is not a straight line flowing independently of you. Time is a variable that responds directly to the frequency of your observation. The human biomass emits an intention to the unified field, wealth, healing, structural dominance, and the next second opens its eyes. They compulsively check their 3D environment to see if anything has changed. They look at their bank account. They analyze the behavior of their competitors. They desperately seek signs in the physical world. They compulsively press the refresh button on the screen of their reality, waiting for the miracle to already be rendered. In quantum mechanics, this neurotic behavior has an empirical and devastating name, the quantum Zeno effect. In the laboratory, physicists discovered that if you observe an unstable quantum system continuously and repetitively, you can freeze its evolution. Subatomic particles that should decay or transform simply stop doing so, because the very act of constantly measuring them collapses the wave function over and over into its initial state. Anxious observation paralyzes the system's time. When you demand a change in your reality, the zero-point field begins to reorganize matter, events, and synchronicities. The wave is in motion, it is flowing. But if your biological ego panics and looks at the environment from desperation, asking, why hasn't it arrived yet? You are executing a quantum measurement from the frequency of scarcity. By observing your life from lack, you force reality to collapse into the exact same state of lack you were in yesterday. You froze it. You have frozen your own evolution. Your desperation to see the result is the electromagnetic force that prevents the result from materializing. You are holding the shutter of the cosmic camera open on a static image of your own poverty. To release the flow, you must first release the gaze of the needy observer. The relativity of desperation, time dilation. Albert Einstein demonstrated that time is not absolute. It is relative to the gravity and velocity of the observer. In regions of massive gravity, such as near a black hole, time slows down to a near standstill. In the thermodynamics of the spirit, fear, doubt, and obsessive need act as a suffocating gravity. When the gaseous man, the visible 5%, desperately needs a manifestation to occur to feel safe or happy, that need generates a dense and dark gravitational mass around his aura. What is the physical result of this emotional gravity? The dilation of spiritual time. From the universe's perspective, the delivery takes a millisecond. But because you are trapped in the gravitational pit of your own anxiety, time stretches and deforms for you. A week feels like a decade. You feel the universe has abandoned you, when in reality it is you who has deformed the structure of space-time around you through the pathetic weight of your own urgency. The absolute operator, the monarch of inner alchemy, repudiates urgency. You know that urgency is a confession of impotence. By eradicating need and assuming an aseptic, icy certainty, your gravitational field becomes light, aerodynamic, and friction-free. Time stops dilating. The temporal distance between thought and matter collapses. The three-dimensional offset, looking at the light of dead stars. To cure yourself of the vice of 3D confirmation, you must understand the slow and dense nature of the physical world around you. When you look at the night sky and see a distant star, you are not seeing the star as it is today. You are seeing the light that star emitted thousands or millions of years ago. You are observing the past. Three-dimensional matter, your body, your bank balance, the current state of your empire, functions under the exact same law of delay. The physical plane is a dense, heavy, and viscous medium. It takes time to reflect the changes that have already occurred in the unified field. When you look at your current circumstances, you are not seeing your present reality. You are looking at a residual hologram created by the frequencies and thoughts you emitted months or years ago. You are looking at the light of a dead star. If you react emotionally to your current reality, you lose the game. By feeling frustration because you are not yet free, or fear because there is still chaos, you are interacting with an obsolete hologram. You are injecting new vital energy into a dead structure, guaranteeing that same hologram projects into your future. It is a thermodynamic loop of misery and decay. The architect of the inner cosmos turns his back on the hologram. You become indifferent to the appearances of the 3D world. You understand that true reality, causal reality, is the vibratory field you hold in the silence of your mind. Physical matter is just the shadow. The mystic never fights with shadows. Harmonic synchronization, the clock of the eternal now. How do you synchronize your biological clock with the cosmic clock to annihilate the weight? By abandoning the concept of a future. The biological mind is trapped in linear time. It always conjugates miracles in the future tense. I will be powerful. I will have control. The universe will give me victory. The unified field does not process the future tense. In the quantum dimension of conscious matter, only one single coordinate point exists, the eternal now. If you ask for something for the future, the universe keeps you in a perpetual state of being on the way. The finish line moves away as fast as you advance. To synchronize the clocks, you must commit an act of temporal insolence. You have to experience the emotion of victory before the physical event occurs, and you must do so in the present tense. You do not wait for wealth to arrive to feel relief. You invoke the chemistry of absolute relief in your blood now. You sit in the center of your meditation chamber and feel it. You do not wait for illness to disappear to feel gratitude. You feel the magnetic euphoria of cellular health invading your DNA in this precise millisecond. By feeling the emotion of victory in the now, your brain assumes the event is a fact. Your frequency changes. Your quantum antenna stops emitting the search signal and begins emitting the possession signal. The universe, seeing no difference between your internal state and a physical fact, begins the high-speed render of the 3D environment to match your current neural and energetic reality. Thermal immobility, the art of gestation. When you have synchronized your clock with the eternal now and emitted the perfect vibratory signature, you enter the most crucial phase of alchemy, thermal immobility. In agriculture, a farmer plants a seed in the darkness of the damp earth. What would happen if, seized by hysteria, he dug it up daily? The premature exposure to light and manipulation would destroy the process. The seed would die. Gestation requires darkness, moisture, and above all, non-interference. Your intention, planted in the womb of creation, the quantum void, requires the same law of immobility. You must leave the mechanism alone. Once you have collapsed the wave with your decree, you remove your hands. You stop manipulating. You stop asking how or when. You walk through the 3D world in a state of aseptic certainty. You know the order was received and processed. You know matter is already moving beneath the surface. If an obstacle arises, You do not interpret it as a delay. You interpret it as the thermodynamics of the universe pushing old structures out of your way to make space for the new mass about to arrive. You become unshakable. Your peace does not depend on physical evidence. You are the master of the silent wait, the state of active download. The operator who has overcome the quantum Zeno effect does not wait passively in a corner. You operate in the physical world, you make high lethality corporate or personal decisions, but you do so from a vibration of consumed triumph. You move through the world like a ghost from a future that is already certain. By completely letting go of the obsessive need to observe the result, you untie the quantum knot. The universe, free from the pressure of your anxious gaze, executes the transmutation at terminal velocity. Suddenly, the capital, the healing, or the structure you requested bursts into your physical reality. It arrives with a silent and perfect violence. It did not happen when the universe wanted. It happened in the exact millisecond you stopped getting in the way. It happened when your biological clock of fear stopped ticking and synchronized with the thundering silence of the cosmic clock. Overclocking the perception of time. Beyond synchronization, the absolute operator learns to overclock his perception of time. When you are in a state of deep coherence and focus, your brain processes more information per second than the surrounding environment. This creates a subjective dilation where the external world appears to slow down. In this high-frequency state, you can see the entropic movements of your adversaries before they even materialize. You inhabit the gaps between their thoughts. While the biomass is reacting to the 3D hologram of the past, you are already calculating the next 3 moves in the causal field of the present. This temporal advantage allows you to act with a precision that seems supernatural. You are not faster in a physical sense, you are simply operating on a different clock speed. You have moved your consciousness to the high bandwidth channels of the 95%, leaving the slow dial-up of the 5% world behind. The erasure of the waiting room. The waiting room is a psychological construct of the ego designed to maintain a sense of separation between the desire and the manifestation. It is a buffer zone where the mind stores unfulfilled hopes. The sovereign deletes the waiting room. You refuse to inhabit the frequency of not yet. In your internal architecture, there is no lobby. There is only the command and the execution. If the 3D world has not yet rendered the result, you do not sit in the lobby. You stay in the control room, maintaining the frequency of the finished state. You ignore the loading bar of the physical world. By erasing the waiting room, you eliminate the mental friction that causes energy leaks. Your focus remains 100% on the destination coordinate. This lack of distraction ensures that the packet of your reality is delivered with 0% loss and 100% integrity. You are the architect who refuses to wait for his own building. Entropy of hesitation, the jitter of the soul. In network engineering, jitter is the variation in the delay of received packets. It causes distortion and lag. In spiritual physics, jitter is hesitation. It is the fluctuation between I am a god and I am a victim. This inconsistency sends a messy, jittery signal to the unified field. The field cannot render a stable reality from a jittery source. Every time you hesitate, you are resetting the clock. You're introducing a temporal offset that pushes the manifestation further away. To reach zero latency, your signal must be a constant, unyielding pulse of high-amplitude certainty. You achieve this through the hardening of your intent. You make your will so dense and so heavy that it no longer fluctuates. You become a phase-locked loop, PLL, with the first cause. Once you are locked in, the time variable disappears and the reality begins to crystallize at the speed of light. The Chronos amputation. To fully synchronize, you must perform a Chronos amputation. You must cut off your attachment to the concept of how long it takes. The question, how long, is a virus of the 5% visible world. It is based on the assumption that resources are scarce and that the universe moves at a human pace. The universe does not have a watch. It has a flow. When you stop measuring time, you stop being a slave to it. You enter a state of timeless execution. In this state, you can accomplish in a day what takes others a year. You are no longer swimming against the current of time. You have become the current. This amputation frees up massive amounts of processing power. Your mind is no longer calculating deadlines or worrying about schedules. All that liberated energy is funneled into the render engine of your manifestation. You become a high-speed processor of reality, bypassing the temporal bottlenecks of the herd. The event horizon of the wish. When your certainty becomes absolute, you reach the event horizon of the wish. This is the point where the manifestation becomes so dense in the causal field that its materialization in the 3D world is mathematically inevitable. At this point, the weight is no longer even a concept. It is just the final descent. You feel the gravity of the result pulling you in. You don't have to push. You are being sucked into the new reality. This is the ultimate inversion of effort. While the biomass is pushing against the world, you are being embraced by the vacuum. The result is already here. The light just needs to reach your eyes. You stand in the silence of your achievement. The 3D world finally snaps into place. The money is in the account, the contract is signed, the body is healed. You do not shout in surprise. You simply nod. You knew the clock was synchronized. You knew the wave had already collapsed. You were already there. Chapter 10. The Immanent Singularity, the Absolute Collapse of Time and Matter. The End of Linear Causality, the Illusion of the Journey. To reach the supreme state of manifestation, inner alchemy demands that you murder the last and most persistent illusion of the biological mind, linear causality. Classical Newtonian physics, the level of consciousness where the human biomass operates, dictates that every cause has an effect, and that between them an obligatory space of time exists. If you push an object, it moves. If you sow a seed, it takes months to grow. The ordinary man applies this same physics to his spirituality. They believe that today they must emit a desire, the cause, so that in a distant future, the universe delivers the result, the effect. This creates a lag in the matrix that keeps them in lack. In advanced quantum mechanics, at the zero-point field level, linear causality crumbles. Time is not an arrow traveling forward. It is a perceptual construct. Past, present, and future exist superimposed in a single and eternal now. What you call zero ping is the state where you realize there is no temporal distance. When your frequency reaches absolute purity, cause and effect merge in the same thermodynamic millisecond. Thought and manifestation cease to be two separate events separated by time. They become two sides of the same quantum coin spinning in the void. You are not waiting for the future. You are collapsing it into the present. Spiritual superfluidity, motion without friction. In condensed matter physics, when you cool liquid helium to fractions of a second above absolute zero, a miracle occurs. It becomes a superfluid. In this macroscopic quantum state, the liquid loses all viscosity. Its internal friction drops to zero. It can flow upward, climb glass walls, and pass through pores without loss. The mastery of the immanent singularity is the transmutation of your soul into a superfluid. While the gaseous man attempts to alter reality through strenuous effort, struggle, and caloric waste, generating massive thermal friction that slows him, the absolute operator has cooled his biological ego to absolute zero. By eradicating emotional friction, your will becomes a superfluid in the unified field. You move through the 3D world and alter the structure of your environment without resistance. Financial barriers and social obstacles that once seemed like concrete walls are now permeable structures through which your energy flows. You achieve maximum physical impact with zero energy expenditure. You no longer push against the world. You flow through it as a ghost in the machine. This state of non-resistance is the ultimate weapon. When you don't fight the matrix has no choice but to let your frequency rewrite its source code. Macro-quantum entanglement, the annihilation of space. The human biomass believes it must attract things. They visualize wealth, health, or power as entities that are far away, somewhere in the universe, and must be dragged magnetically through space to their hands. This paradigm perpetuates distance and reinforces the belief that you are currently separate from your goal. The mystic operating in the singularity state uses quantum entanglement. Physics proves that when two particles are entangled, regardless of whether they are separated by a millimeter or 100,000 light years, what happens to one affects the other instantly, violating the speed of light. This is non-local reality. In spiritual alchemy, you are not separate from the empire you wish to build. You do not attract matter, you entangle with it in the void of your meditation. When you merge your heart and mind in the aseptic certainty that the reality already belongs to you, your signature and your desire's signature become one system. From that millisecond, spatial distance becomes irrelevant. If you change your inner state, particle A, the outer world, particle B, simultaneously restructures to reflect that change. There is no journey. There is no waiting time. The space between you and your objective collapses upon itself. You are already there. The black hole of the will, infinite gravity. At the center of every galaxy exists a singularity, a black hole. It is a point in space where matter has condensed so much that its density is infinite and its volume is zero. The gravity of a singularity is so monstrous that it absolutely curves the fabric of space-time. Not even light can escape its pull. This is the physical model of your final evolution. The ordinary man is like a cloud of stellar gas. His energy is scattered, diffuse, chasing 1,000 irrelevant goals. They have no gravitational mass, so the universe does not orbit them. They orbit the crises of society and the whims of others. When you purge your mind, discipline your biology, and concentrate all your vital energy into a single, unnegotiable geometric vision, you experience an internal gravitational collapse. Your energy densifies until it becomes infinite. You become a singularity. In this state, you no longer need to make things happen. You sit in the deep immobility of your certainty and let your immense gravitational mass do the work. Resources, alliances, matter, and capital are literally sucked toward your event horizon because your vibration has warped local space-time. The universe obeys you because you are the heaviest thermodynamic object. Fusion of the observer and the observed. The fall of duality. The last veil of 3D illusion is duality, the belief in an I that observes and a world that is observed. Quantum physics, through the double-slit experiment, strongly hints that the observer's consciousness is what forces matter to take shape. In the singularity state, you experience the end of separation. You empirically understand that the physical environment, the chair you sit in, the capital in your accounts, and the empire you control are not external objects. They are the crystallization of your own energy. They are your own consciousness manifested in a slower, denser state of vibration. They are you. When you realize that you are the matter you are trying to mold, the struggle ends. You can no longer fight against external reality any more than you can fight against your own hand. If you wish to alter your material empire, you simply adjust your internal frequency with the natural ease of closing a fist. Dualism is the friction of the mind. By collapsing the distinction between here and there, you eliminate the transmission loss of your commands. Your will is broadcast directly into the substrate of reality without going through an external medium. You are the architect, the stone, and the building all at once. The sovereign of the instant, real-time manifestation. The empirical result of reaching the singularity is operating in real time. The biomass will observe you with reverential terror. They will see a human being who exhibits no marks of biological stress, who does not doubt, who does not pray to the sky, and who does not celebrate with emotional stridency. They will see a monarch of inner alchemy, who simply decrees a change in the structure of his reality and watches as physical matter folds, reorders, and obeys in days or hours. There is no magic. There is no low-resolution mysticism. It is the relentless application of the thermodynamics of the soul. You have purged friction. You have annihilated distance. You have collapsed time. You have transformed into the gravitational epicenter of your own cosmos. The quantum void is now your blank slate, and you possess the pure frequency chisel needed to carve stars. This is the domain of the absolute instant, the zero-point protocol, deleting the buffer. In the final phase of the singularity, you must delete the buffer. In computing, a buffer is a temporary storage area used while data is being moved. In the mind, the buffer is the expectation of a delay. It is the subconscious whisper that says, "It's coming, but not yet." This buffer is a security breach. By deleting the buffer, you force your system into a state of instantaneous render. You no longer accept loading bars in your reality. If the thought is pure and the heart is coherent, the 3D world must update its pixels immediately. You treat every intention as an unnegotiable command to the local matrix. This protocol requires a brain that is no longer anchored to the seconds and minutes of the human world. You inhabit the Planck time of the universe, the smallest unit of time possible. At this speed, you are always ahead of the collapse. You are the one who decides when the wave becomes a particle. The vacuum pressure, sucking reality into form. When you become a singularity, you create a pressure differential between your internal void and the external 5% world. The vacuum of your intention is so powerful that it creates a suction effect. You don't have to reach for your goals. The laws of physics push the goals into your empty space. Think of it as a thermodynamic vacuum pump. By maintaining a state of absolute readiness, the vacuum, you force the surrounding high-pressure environment to flow into you. Money, influence, and territory rush into your life to fill the void you have created through your silent, cold certainty. If you feel you are chasing something, you have lost your singularity. A black hole never chases light. Light has no choice but to enter. You return to your core, you deepen your silence, and you increase your internal density until the world begins its inevitable slide toward your center once again. The crystalline architecture of the now. In this state, your life is no longer a series of events, it is a crystalline architecture. Every piece of your empire is locked into a geometric relationship with your center. Because you have collapsed the duality of space, your external world is as organized and stable as your internal meditation. You can look at a chaotic market or a social upheaval and see the underlying geometry. You don't panic because you know the chaos is just matter looking for a new frequency. You provide that frequency. You act as the master clock for your environment, forcing everything around you to synchronize with your peace. This synchronization is how you build a lasting legacy. You aren't just manifesting a single event, you are manifesting a permanent field of order. You are a localized high-pressure system of sovereignty that dictates the weather for everyone else in your orbit. You are the source of the climate you inhabit. The amputation of hope. Hope is the poison of the singularity. To hope is to admit that you do not yet have what you desire. It is a declaration of distance. The sovereign amputates hope and replaces it with immanent possession. You do not hope the deal closes. You inhabit the reality where the deal is a historical fact. This amputation is painful for the ego, which loves the dopamine of hoping. But for the absolute operator, it is a necessary surgery. By removing the future potential of hope, you lock all your energy into the present fact of the singularity. You are no longer a dreamer, you are a witness. When you walk into a room, you aren't hoping for a result. You are there to collect what the field has already assigned to you. This frequency of collection versus request is what gives the sovereign his terrifying weight. You aren't asking the universe for permission. You are simply acknowledging the render, the final event horizon, crossing the threshold. There comes a moment when your internal work is so complete that you cross the final event horizon. You reach a point where you can no longer even imagine failure. The very concept of not getting what you want becomes as alien as the concept of the sun not rising. You have moved beyond belief. At this threshold, you and the first cause are in a state of direct memory access, DMA. There is no intermediary. There is no ego firewall. There is no biological delay. You think and the world reflects. You breathe and the structure of your empire expands. You have reached the singularity. The 3D world may take a moment to catch up to your current coordinate, but for you, it is irrelevant. You are already living in the result. You are the sovereign of the instant, the architect of the void, and the master of the single point. The journey is over because you have become the destination. The silence of the monolith. Now you inhabit the silence of the monolith. You no longer need these words. You no longer need techniques. You have updated your hardware, reconfigured your network, and collapsed your time. You are a solid-state entity in a gaseous world. You are the anchor for the 95% in the world of the 5%. You stand still. You remain cold. You observe the unfolding of your will with the same routine indifference with which a god watches the formation of a galaxy. It is not personal. It is simply physics. It is the inevitable output of a perfectly calibrated sovereign system. The vacuum is full. The time is now. The singularity is immanent. Conclusion. Disconnection from the public network, the cosmic backbone. The Great Migration of the Spirit. You have reached the final threshold of this technical manual for the soul. The chapters behind you were not intended as inspirational prose, but as a low-level reformatting of your existential operating system. To finalize the installation of your sovereignty, you must perform the ultimate act of the monarch, the total disconnection from the public network of the human biomass. The public network is the collective frequency of the 5% visible world. It is the realm of social validation, political hysteria, economic fear, and the constant buzzing need for external confirmation. Most humans live their entire lives as thin clients, processing only the data that the social server allows them to see. They are nodes in a hive mind of scarcity, vibrating in a frantic, out-of-sync jitter that ensures they never achieve the density required for true manifestation. To operate on the cosmic backbone, the 95% dark matter infrastructure of the first cause, you must sever the umbilical cord of social approval. You must become a dark node. This is not an act of misanthropy, but of thermodynamic efficiency. Every time you explain your vision to a gaseous mind, every time you seek likes or retweets for your internal expansion, you are creating a massive energy leak. You are dropping packets of your power into a void that can never return them. The terminal of silence, encrypting the will. The transition to the backbone requires you to move your operations into the terminal of silence. In the world of the 5%, everything is noise. They celebrate before the work is done. They weep before the battle is lost. They are constantly broadcasting their internal state, which makes their frequency easy to jam. The sovereign, however, operates with end-to-end encryption. When you move your will to the cosmic backbone, your intentions become invisible to the public scanners of the matrix. You no longer signal your moves. You don't announce your empire. You simply let the empire's gravity speak for itself. This encryption ensures that no external interference, no envy, no doubt, no social firewall can intercept the command you have sent to the unified field. By disconnecting from the public feedback loop, you eliminate the social latency that slows down the average man. You no longer wait for the world to tell you it's okay to be powerful. You have bypassed the permission gate. You are directly plugged into the source code of reality, and your only peer is the vacuum itself. In this isolation, your signal reaches its maximum amplitude. Static stability, the solid-state entity. The biomass is a gaseous state. It expands and contracts based on the temperature of the environment. If the economy is hot, they are happy. If the social climate is cold, they are depressed. They are victims of the ambient thermal noise. By migrating to the backbone, you achieve the solid-state configuration. You become a localized zero-point field. Your internal temperature is now independent of the external weather. You have achieved static stability. This means that even if the 3D world around you is in a state of total entropic collapse, your internal render remains sharp and high resolution. You are the only stable object in a world of ghosts. This stability is what allows the unified field to use you as a primary anchor for the manifestation of massive order. Because you are no longer fluctuating, the universe can route heavier loads through your node. You become a regional hub for capital, power, and structural influence. The cosmos recognizes that your uptime is 100%. While others are crashing under the pressure of the matrix, you remain online, cold, and operational. You are the backbone of your own local universe. The final handshake, merging with the first cause. The final step of the disconnection is the final handshake. This is the moment when the distinction between your will and the universal will vanishes completely. You realize that you were never a separate user trying to hack the system. You are the system itself experiencing its own creative potential. The disconnection from the public network is, in reality, the reconnection to your true origin. As you step into the world of the 5% today, you do so as a foreign agent. You look like the biomass, you speak their language, but your data link is elsewhere. You are a ghost in their machine, a monarch walking through a village of puppets. You do not judge them. You simply observe their low-resolution struggles with the aseptic pity of a god watching an ant colony. Your work is done. The drivers are updated. The firewall is reconfigured. The latency is 0. The singularity is active. You are now a sovereign of the instant. The board of ash is before you, and for the first time in your evolutionary history, you are holding the brush. What you carve into the vacuum today will remain as a monolith for all eternity.